Welcome to the ChatGPT blogging blueprint, and welcome to ChatGPT. If you've never heard of ChatGPT before, never used it, congratulations for taking a massive leap of faith. I really appreciate it. But I'm expecting more of you probably have heard of this and have used it before. But if you're not familiar, let's just start from the basics. What is ChatGPT? ChatGPT is an AI writer. Yes, it can do a little bit more than just like writing, but at its core, it is an AI writer. That's kind of the point of it. It was created by OpenAI, and it is something that is free to use if you're using ChatGPT 3.5. It was initially 3, they keep upgrading, it'll keep going. At time of recording, we're at 3.5. To get to it, do not search chatgpt.com. I will tell you that right now. It takes you to a spam site. Don't do it. Instead, go to openai.com. I'll put a link below this, don't worry, for you to sign up for your first time. But it's openai.com and then it's /blog/chatgpt, or just Google ChatGPT. It will come up. But this is what the homepage looks like. So from here, to start using it, you're either going to sign up, in which case you are going to need to connect it to your Google account or create an account. I personally like to use my Google account. Otherwise, you have to have like a phone verification. I travel too much and like my phone number keeps changing. So connect it at will, set it up. It does require verification. So it's very hard to share an account on this. I do recommend having your own account. For example, if you use Google, it's going to send something to your Google verification app. If you do this one, it's going to either text you or email you to confirm your identity. There's a lot of like privacy concerns here, so just like use your own account. Now I already have one, so I'm going to click login, and it's going to open up my selection of things. So ChatGPT is where we're going to use the language model to write. DALL-E is more about images. I honestly haven't used it. I don't really care about AI images. They're just not that I don't care about them, but they're not my focus. They're not what I need. And then the API is if you were going to build a plugin relating to this and need to like build the data out. Some people use this for bulk publishing, things like that. We're going to stick with just plain old ChatGPT for the focus of this course. And this is what it looks like. On the side, it's going to have all of your chats. So you can see I've got a lot of stuff happening over there. Over here, we have GPT 3.5, which is the base model. So that is the free plan. Now, if you do not pay for it, you're not going to see ChatGPT Plus, and the GPT-4 is going to be grayed out. When you click on it, there's going to be a pop-up that comes up that says like upgrade for $20 a month. It's only $20 a month. It's pretty freaking great, I'll be honest with you. I really, really like it. So I do recommend upgrading, especially if you're going to be doing anything coding related, if you're going to be asking it for long form responses and long form text. And if you want it to actually like talk like you, it's going to be very, very helpful. But we'll get into that in a little bit. So first I want to show you just how to use it. So when we open it the first time, it's going to have a new chat for us right here. But let's say you were in the middle of something and need a new chat. You're going to come up here and press new chat. And it's just going to create a new one. So if I'd been working on something, like if I put text here, we're just going to get him to run it. He's going to give it a name. And I hit new chat, you'll see brand new, but that stays over here. So it does automatically save things. Now, because of that, it means you can come back to it, which is quite nice. So this is where if I wanted to tell him something to do, I wouldn't have just written text here, I would have written something helpful. So this little like editor button right here is where I can edit what I said and start again. So I can say, hey ChatGPT, what color is the sky? And then, oops, I always hit enter by accident, but it's save and submit when you're redoing it. When you're doing it the first time, enter will submit it. And so here you can see he gives us a little helpful information. Now I will say I am going to gender ChatGPT as he. It's a like weird glitch in my own system where like I need to refer to it as a man, because the first one that I ever used was called Jarvis, like Jarvis from Marvel. And so because of that, I think of all of them with Jarvis's voice, and that is something I have to contend with. But unfortunately, you're going to have to contend with it too throughout this. So we've got a nice little answer here. Now there's some buttons here. What do they mean? This one is going to let you copy it, and then you can see I can paste it here and it's going to give me all the information. So that's really helpful for pasting things into a blog post. Now the thumbs up is to tell ChatGPT it did a good job. Thumbs down is that that wasn't a very helpful output. And basically that's because ChatGPT is always training itself. So it's looking to get better and better. And the reason that it's free for us to use is that it is collecting data to train its model to be better. So you are participating in that, and that is something you agree to in the terms and conditions. So that ChatGPT, kind of like using Facebook for free, where they collect data so that it can be free. Same idea here. Now, if I didn't like its output, I can hit regenerate and it'll try again. Maybe something glitched, maybe I refreshed it halfway through or something. Who knows? We all make mistakes, even ChatGPT. So by regenerating its response, I can get something new told to me. And then you can see it's going to ask you, how was it? I will be honest with you, half the time, more than half the time, 97% of the time, I completely ignore this and I completely ignore the thumbs up over here. I just keep going with it or redo things as I need to. And down here, you can just keep talking to it. Great. What color is the ocean? And it's going to give you more conversations. So you can keep talking to it for a fairly long while, to be honest. I have yet to reach the bottom of ChatGPT. I don't think there is one. But what there is a cap on top. So the free GPT can see about, I have it written down because I always forget, about 3,000 words back. So if we keep going for a long time, we're going to have more than 3,000 words in our history. And that's going to be a problem because it's going to start forgetting what happened before. It's kind of like my dad at the end of a work day where he just can't retain whatever my sister and I say to him. And he's like, okay, I can remember for the last 5 minutes. Anything before that, he's like, I don't know, I'm stressed, I'm tired, leave me alone, sort of a thing. But with GPT-4, it actually remembers to about 25,000 words. Now it is more character based. I prefer to look at it word count wise because I have no idea what a character is going to adjust to. So it is about 25,000 words, and that's going to give you a lot more context there. For you to feed it more information, for you to work with it on something at a larger scale. So for example, if you're collaborating with it on a blog post, think about how many things you're going to need to tell it for each paragraph, how much it's going to have to write for each paragraph, and then how it's going to connect the whole thing. So 3,000 words, if your blog post is even 2,000 words, likely with some extra stuff it might not have gotten right with some of your questions, some of your queries, you're going to hit 3,000 words very quickly. But 25,000 words, you can easily write that 2,000 word blog post and it'll remember everything, which is really helpful. And it allows it to actually base things on each other a little bit more and just have more context. So you're going to get a better post. It's going to be that intern who I think maybe sticking with the intern idea is kind of a good way to do it instead of my dad. But I treat ChatGPT like a baby intern. He doesn't know anything. He's coming fresh out of university or high school or something. He's got vague knowledge of stuff, but no real world experience, no actual knowledge. So it's my job to tell him stuff. So if you have a hungover intern who just partied really hard, they can't remember that much. But if you have that really diehard intern, I want to do this, I'm ready to go, you're probably actually paying them, they're probably not unpaid, then there you go, you're going to get a better output. Same thing here. Now, if your sidebar over here gets insane or you don't understand what's happening, you can hit edit and rename it if you want. I'll be honest, never done it. That's why there's some very weird names over here. You can also delete them if something is just completely irrelevant, or this one here, something that you're just using for an example. So you don't necessarily need to keep all of this information here because there is a lot. Now there's also this link to chat here, which is a really cool thing that they added more recently. So you can actually share your chat responses and what it's done for you, essentially, which can be a really great opportunity to share with other people how it's working for you. Dr. Marie Haynes has been doing this on Twitter, especially with like some of her more fun ChatGPT kind of experiments, like having it create playlists or having it help her garden and things like that, or create a meal plan. And then it lets you see the whole prompt, which is really cool. You can also then share it with your team, or even like share it with a VA and be like, okay, put this on the blog now, but maybe give some instructions so they're not like copying your prompts in there too. Now, this little button here is going to toggle the reader. We're going to have it toggled off as much as I can remember to for the course of this course. Didn't mean to say course twice, but whatever. Just that way we get like kind of a more clear screen. But I do find that like usually I just leave it open. I don't think there's any big issue with that. Now down here, we've got these three little buttons. I'll have to move my head a bit more. And so you will see like your plan where you can handle your billing. But if you go to custom instructions, this is another thing I love about GPT-4 especially. To my knowledge, it's only GPT-4 so far, but it might, maybe after time of recording, they'll open it to more people. What this is really cool is that like you can train it ahead of time. So you can tell it like your ideal audience, what your blog's mission statement is, your tone of voice, your past experiences. Give it context, it'll remember on top of everything else that's happening. How great is that? Because like so many times I am feeding it the same information to start a blog post every single time. So this is somewhere you can start instead and give it all the information that you want. So the information I always give it then is going to be what my name of my blog, what it's about, who I am, so a couple like basic informational points about me, my ideal audience. So I want it to know who we're talking to. And I have like a huge customer avatar that I've like built out for my sites where I'm like, I know exactly who this person is. I have tons of information on like where they would have gone to school, the name of their dog, all sorts of stuff. That way I really know that person. And then I also am going to ask it to, or pardon me, tell it more context around my blog's mission statement and things that are just kind of come up over and over again. So for me with She Knows SEO, I would tell it I am an SEO expert. This is the number of students I've helped. Here are some of my like common results that I cite, bits of information like that. Probably a bit of my backstory. If you're running a travel blog, you would give it some of your travel history, probably tell it where you've been like overall. If you are, I don't know, a chef, tell it your specialties, tell it a couple of like extra things about you, tell it like where you got trained, maybe like list something that you talk about or reference a lot in your post. So maybe there's a certain blender that you use for like all of your soups. I don't know, I don't make soup, but like tons of options there. So give it as much context as you can. You get 1,500 characters here, use them. And you can change this, so you can come back in and change it out. So I do often come here per post, to be honest with you, which is not the most efficient way, and most people don't do this, but I like to come in and give it a bunch of backstory here so it knows what I want for specific posts. Like my experience changes based on the post I'm writing, so I can either feed it into ChatGPT in that prompt area generally or here. If I'm working on a certain pillar or certain site at a time, I'll come and write it here. Now, because I oscillate between 5 of my own blogs, I have to change this pretty regularly anyway, so to me it just doesn't make a huge difference, but yeah, a good spot to feed it information. Now, for how would you like ChatGPT to respond, this is more where you're talking about like tone of voice, style, American versus British English, different slang that you often use. Do you not swear? Do you use contractions? Do you, I don't know, should it not mention certain things? Look to your blog style guide and you can base a lot off of what's in the style guide, to be honest, which is super helpful, to be honest with you. I don't know why I said to be honest so much there. But you can even like ask ChatGPT, like feed it some of your a previous post of yours and ask it to tell you what is the style or create a style guide based on this post and then feed it to ChatGPT. So like have it do all the work for you, totally fine. But this is going to allow it to have more context of the type of answers you want. Think of it kind of like the brand voice area in Jasper or in Reword, where Reword like trains itself on your past posts. Same idea here. You're kind of letting ChatGPT train itself on your existing style and existing data. If you're not a very strong writer, what you can do is feed it someone else's writing who is very strong, especially in your niche, and then train it on that so that you're able to kind of mimic their style. This does not mean that you're going to copy their content. That is not something I ever advocate. What you're doing is just copying the style. Same way as when you're training yourself to be a better writer, you tend to look at other people in your industry and try to mimic them a bit until you come up with your own methods. So this is basically how ChatGPT works. It's pretty fun, pretty cool. We're just gonna do a couple things in GPT-4 that are a bit different now. But GPT-4 is just like kind of the elevated version of GPT 3.5 at time of recording. They do upgrade these. They currently, at time of recording again, have not said when the next one will be, but there have been numerous updates and things are always changing with this. The base stuff has stayed the same though, nicely. But here we've got Code Interpreter. So Code Interpreter is meant to be more for coders, where you can feed it code, it's gonna help you debug it or come up with new options. Even when I code with ChatGPT, I don't use Code Interpreter. I just ask it for code, but you can come down here and either upload a file of code or write out some code for it. Another thing it has are plugins. So they've got this massive plugin store with so many options. So it starts with popular, it goes to there's new, there's all. I just installed a ton of them to test. I cannot vouch for any of them because haven't even used most of them, to be honest. But you've got a bunch of different ones here. So you can click through and find all sorts. For example, there's Expedia to help you book a trip. You can create a CSV file out of something. There's so much here. They're not all amazing. Some of them are not great, but they're pretty fun to play with. Now you could see as well when I hover over this that it says that we have a cap of 50 messages every 3 hours. I have only hit that cap a couple times, so it's not the end of the world. And especially when you are smarter about the way you're prompting it, you're not really gonna have an issue. And then really for the input, we will go over more about creating prompts and things like that, but you can write anything into this area. Hi, chat. Oops, my keyboard disconnected again. Hi, ChatGPT. You can just say hi. And he'll eventually, maybe he's ghosting me. There you go. Hi, how can I assist you today? He'll just reply. So technically, yes, we want to have the best prompts possible, but realistically, he will respond to whatever you input. But you can see that he is fully basing his response off of what you said. So it is important for what you're putting in there. That is going to help you. So I cannot wait to teach you more about how you can use ChatGPT to create blog posts faster, save you time, and create a lot of other interesting things. So we're gonna dive into the course in full now, but I hope this gave you a bit of a walkthrough of what ChatGPT is, how to use it, and whether or not GPT-4 is worth it. I think it is. For $20 a month, you get a more up-to-date version of the system. You do tend to get more updates. You get these plugins. You also get just a lot of extra context for everything that you write. We are going to do some experiments later on of asking the same prompt to 3.5 and 4 and seeing which has the better output. So let's dive all the way in to ChatGPT. What are the ethics of using an AI writer? I get asked this all the time. People are super concerned, and let's talk about it. Because even though it's not technically the focus of this course, it's very related to it. So I think AI is 100% ethical to use on your blog or in your business. Why? Because it evens the playing field. How many massive businesses have teams of writers? I was on them. I was a freelance writer for years. So I worked for all these giant companies, for bigger bloggers that could afford to hire staff to do this stuff. When you're starting out, you can't do that. And even beyond that, you shouldn't technically have to do it now, which is kind of nice. I'm not a great people manager. I can 100% put that out there. I'm getting better. I'm learning as I grow with my team, but it is not my natural state to manage a ton of people. I don't love doing it. I would much rather get to work, write posts. I'm a bit of a control freak. I know that about myself as well. So I love writing. I just want to do it a little bit faster. And that's what AI lets me do. So what I think is unethical is when you have AI completely write the article for you and you never edit it, you make no changes. That's not good. That is 100% letting it do all the work. So if you just told it, write a blog post about golden retrievers that'll make me $1 million, first of all, it's not going to be a good blog post because you've given it almost no information. But second of all, like, you haven't done anything. You've literally done the bare minimum. So therefore, you're not going to have success, and you're kind of teetering on it not being super ethical, because where is that information coming from? AI writers do scrape the internet to get their information. I don't really think that's the problem though. I think more so the issue is that, like, you're not doing anything. AI writers are trained on the internet. That's where they get some of their information. It's where their natural language processing also develops, because they're learning from, like, reading different things online. They don't know everything. They're learning, and a lot of people are mad that, like, their content is being used to train these systems. But anyone who is writing their own content, this is the way a lot of us learned, is that we would look at successful stuff and then try to do it ourselves and try to, like, reverse engineer it and do it. So basically, ChatGPT just does that part of it, just like humans would do. And people get really upset when I say that that's okay, that it's all right that that's happening. Because yeah, I equally don't want certain proprietary things being put out there. But if I'm publishing something online on the first page of Google, I want people to see it. What I disagree with are things where you're not credited or it is word for word your stuff. That's a problem. But if you're doing, like, certain research, kind of the goal of that is that people are going to learn from that research, see it, and adapt it, to be honest. Like, that's just the way it works. So while I am not, like, gonna philosophize about philosophize? Is that a word? I don't know. I'm not gonna get philosophical about all of this stuff. I just want to say that, like, the basics of using AI for writing blog posts, for publishing content on your site, for repurposing that content, publishing newsletters, writing an ebook or two, it's ethical, but you still should put in some work. It just evens the playing field so that those of us who don't have infinite resources, we don't have infinite time, we don't have infinite money. I don't know anyone who has either of those things, but especially if they're not very plentiful. So, like, I was working 4 jobs when I first found AI writers. I needed something to speed up my ability to grow my site so that I could grow it. I hit, like, 10K within, I think it was 8 months. Yeah, 7.5 months basically, from when I started using AI writers and working really hard at this, while working a ton of other jobs. And that was because I was able to do this faster and then accomplish more. It just speeds up our timeline. It just helps us. It's kind of like giving yourself, like, I don't know, a speed booster in Mario Kart or something to just, like, speed you up. It doesn't necessarily mean you're a better driver. It does not mean that you're, like, gonna win the race for sure, but it can supercharge you. So to use it ethically, we're gonna go through in this course ways that you can use it, and I am gonna focus on ethical things. We're not gonna be stealing content. We're not gonna be letting it do all the work for us. None of those are allowed in this course, and just shouldn't be allowed anyway. And to be honest, ChatGPT, not very good at stealing content regardless. So we're gonna focus on ways that you can use this ethically, and ultimately it is up to you to determine the morality of it for your site. If it does not feel comfortable to you, if you don't like using it, don't use it. It is that simple. I definitely think that you're hindering your site to some extent by doing that, and I think likely it's just a certain usage case would be better for you. But if you actively dislike it, no one is holding a gun to your head and making you do it, because that would just be wrong. So instead, leave it alone, go do something else. Probably hire writers to help you speed things up, or accept that it might take you a lot longer to accomplish things. And that can be totally okay if that's what you're all right with. So I think AI is amazing, obviously. I mean, this is like one of multiple courses of mine about AI. And ultimately, I think it just allows people who are not in the 1%, people who are not already successful, to be able to compete at a larger scale. But you still need to drive that ship. You still need to make sure that you are adding your expertise to it to make it actually beneficial. Otherwise, it can be as ethical as you want and just get nothing done. So let's actually go into now how you can use ChatGPT for success. To use ChatGPT, you have to know how to prompt it. It's kind of like giving instructions to a baby intern. It's like telling your dog what to do. You can't just expect that it's going to know what to create until you've shaped the command. So that's really where prompts come in. Now you'll hear all sorts of fancy things about prompt engineering and like creating the best prompt. Ultimately, it comes down to a certain kind of few elements. Number one, what should it do? Number two, how should it do it? Number three, why should it do it? And number four, who should it do it for? So really it kind of goes back to like some of those journalistic things of like the 4 W's and 1 how. I don't know. I don't remember what it was called. Years ago in elementary school we learned that. But essentially we want to figure out, or we want to tell ChatGPT so it can figure out what the purpose of this is. If you just tell ChatGPT, write a blog post about golden retrievers, we're going to get something super random. We're probably not going to like it. So, I mean, I think that's kind of a cute header, to be honest with you. The gold standard of companionship. My golden retriever is snoring at my feet right now. So, but here we go. We're getting something pretty general, more historical, more of an overview of golden retrievers. If what I had wanted was a blog post about golden retrievers, about like, can they swim? Or how to prevent them from getting ear infections when they won't get out of the frickin' lake, which is currently my issue with my dog. So you need to like then tell it that. The more specific you are with the prompt, the better it's gonna do. And basically, if you don't like the output that you're being given, it's kind of on you, to be honest with you. People don't like it when I say that, but it's true because it only knows as much as you give it. Yes, it has some background information, like here where it has like Air Bud that it's referencing as a doggy movie star. I don't know if I would call Comet from Full House a famous golden. I guess maybe slightly before my time. I watched that a few years ago for the first time. But you can see pretty short, not SEO optimized, doesn't do it for me. And so because of that, we need to give it a better prompt. If I said, write a blog post about golden retrievers, what did I say before? Can golden retrievers swim? The post should have an introduction, H2 headers for the body of the text, and a conclusion. You can already see that I'm giving it some extra information. Now it did that naturally, but we're gonna provide even more. The post is for golden retriever owners who have 1 to 2 goldens and want to know if these are good dogs to swim with. It's kind of confusing. I don't know, whatever. I don't have to be perfect. This is an example, Nina. Clearly I'm a perfectionist. But now we know who we're writing it for. Now, why are we writing it? We want to tell it, like, what is the point of this? What is the outcome? Our answer is yes, Goldens are great swimmers and the breed is meant to retrieve waterfowl. My dog loves to swim. You'll often see my Golden fetching balls in the lake. So now I've also added personal experience. It's gonna be even better now. So now we know what's happening, why, how. We've given a lot here. So we really want it to understand what it's doing, why it's doing it, how it's doing it, which would be kind of I didn't give a ton there, to be honest, but I could have gone into way more detail of what constitutes a good blog post, given it examples, defined my style, fed it, like there's so many things we can do that we're gonna get into later on. This is an example of the difference we're gonna get here. So I'm actually gonna show you just the difference of telling it to write a post about golden retrievers that can swim, and then we're gonna add in the extra prompts so you can really see the difference. So it's gonna give you something that's passable. It'll be fine. It's not likely to be the best thing in the world. Could you publish it? In theory, yes. And I know people that do. Personally, I wouldn't unless I've added and amended things significantly. Also, because this is going to be a very, very short post. So you can see above too, like this one is, how long is it? I'm not very good at judging just on a glance. It's 589 words. That is far too short for a blog post. I would never publish a blog post, shorter than at least 2,000 words. If it's like maybe something super quick and like a very, 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 very specific thing, in some niches you can get away with 1,000 words. Personally, I still wouldn't do it. I think it's just not enough time really for you to do more. So I think this is a good basis. Like, it's definitely given us helpful information. But let's go in and change the prompt. So just to remind everybody, we've got really short intro. I will say I'm not a fan of AI written intros. I really like to do it myself or give a very extensive prompt. We have a historical link to water, how they're built for it, how to introduce your dog to water. Didn't work for my dog until we threw a driftwood that he wanted, and then he just belly flopped in and was like, cool, okay, I guess you swim now. Talks about the benefits, safety, conclusion. I think it touches on good points. I think it's the quality of it that is the problem. So let's rerun it with our new instructions. It loves like a pithy headline. I really like it. So it's going to take a minute to run. But here I already see it's getting a little bit more casual in the language. The other one felt a little bit more like, kind of like an essay, I guess, or like a Wikipedia to some extent. So we're still getting a lot of the same notes on it, which I think is good. They were helpful notes, but we need to actually see that it's done before I can fully comment. One thing I will say is that it says if you're a proud owner of one or two of these charismatic canines, so it's like already referring to things that I've mentioned. Here, personal experience, just to paint a picture, my own golden retriever absolutely adores swimming. It's true, he loves fetching balls in the lake and would literally do it till he threw up if he could. He is obsessed. So you can see it's a different post now. Now, not massively different here for sure, because most of this it was already doing. The more specific you get, the better the output is going to be. If I just told, like, I don't know, 10 different third graders to write an essay on, third grade is young, I guess like 8th grade, to write an essay on Romeo and Juliet, they're going to do their own thing. If I tell them specifically what to do, like, okay, write about the relationship between, oh, it's been so long since I read that book, between like the nurse or whatever and Juliet, and how she stands in as a mother figure, I don't know. They're going to get way more specific. Now, if I've also already trained them on how to write a quality essay, it's going to be way better than if I just like day one go write an essay and they've never written one before. They can Google it and come up with some ideas of how you might write an essay, but they don't know how I want them to. So that's where like the training comes in that we're going to give ChatGPT. And that's why prompts really matter. So when you are writing prompts for ChatGPT, yes, you can just say, write 10 headlines for a post about can golden retrievers swim. But you definitely want to give more context. I always want to know, and this is something for your own writing as well, who are we talking to? What is the goal of this? How are we presenting it to them? And yeah, like what's happening? What are we even doing here? Sort of a thing. These are kind of the same things that you would probably put on a brief for a beginner intern or for a beginner writer who maybe doesn't know your site that well. It's all that kind of guidance that we are giving. Now, if you have GPT-4 and you're able to add those specialized instructions, then some of this context we can already have given in that other area. But I mean, maybe I don't talk about my golden retriever's obsession with swimming in there. Maybe I don't reference a specific instance of how he learned to swim. And I would give that context in the prompt. So what most people do is they just write one sentence and then they're mad that it's not good enough. Other people get upset, and everyone's just upset about AI, and I get it. I mean, be upset if you want to be and then move on from it. Just use it properly and then keep going. But having a long prompt can sometimes seem like, oh, well then I could have just written the piece. Yeah, you probably could have. But you're just feeding it facts and figures. You're not feeding it, you don't have to be creative with it. And the better you get at this, the more you're going to be able to template these things. So you'll be able to use the same kind of base, and then who it's for is likely going to always be the same per site. And then your answer, the specific keyword you're going for, and personal experience, you're just going to drop in. So pretty easy to do, does not take long to add those little details for yourself, and then ChatGPT is going to run. So we're going to learn more about how to actually write a quality blog post. It's not 500 words with it, but you can already see the difference that happens when we just give it different prompts. So be prepared to experiment with this a little bit. You will have to test out what works best for you, giving it a tone of voice, giving it different instructions, speaking to it to ask what could I have done to make this clearer, what prompt would result in this kind of a blog post, and give it an example. That's how I started learning, is just playing with it. And the great thing is that on the free plan, it's very hard to ever hit limits with it beyond asking it to do 8 things at the same time. So you're going to be able to do a lot more with it and just play around with it and not have to worry about, running out of words or something. Even on the paid plan, you get 50 queries every 3 hours. You'd have to just sit here and ask, I would think it would take you 2.5 to hit that, to be honest, with it producing decently long outputs. If it's giving you 1 sentence outputs, then yes, you could get through that pretty quickly. But I don't think anything that you would do that for, just use the free one. But this is going to be an experiment for you to some extent to get used to the way that prompting works best for you. You can ask questions, you can just type it out like this. I usually say please and thank you because I don't know, I guess I'm worried about the machines rising up or something. Also, I'm very Canadian, so even if I get something wrong and mislead it, I will say, sorry, I actually meant this, and it'll redo it. So don't be afraid as well of working with ChatGPT. I think that's really the best way prompts work, is give it the most informative prompt you can to start with, and then work with it to customize it. It's like having a writing buddy, not someone that you're pawning this off on and then you just want to press publish and it's good to go. If you want that, you're going to get lower quality results. It's what happens with one-click AI writers, and at time of recording, none of them are up to snuff for me. So this is something that I think works a lot better, where you can customize it. So now you know how to prompt ChatGPT. You can literally ask it to do anything. You can come up with meal plans, playlists. You can make up random names. You can tell a story. You can just some people are using it as a therapist. I wouldn't personally use it for medical stuff. They even say it could be misleading. But if you just need someone to talk to and you're lonely, it works a treat, I'm sure. I use it for work. That's kind of my focus with it, or random coding hyperfixations when I like to pretend I can code, which I'm not great at. So this is essentially how you would build your prompt. You can also put different lines in. So if you want to have write 5 titles for this post, if you hit shift and then enter, then you can have the spaces between them, if that helps you to be a bit more organized, especially with a templated prompt. If you're going to be reusing it, it does make sense to have it pretty clearly divided as to the different sections of your prompt, so you're not having to hunt through it to find things. You'll notice in the prompt library as well, there are brackets around things that you should adjust or add your own spin on. So for that purpose, I do space things out that way, because otherwise I'm liable to miss it. Now that you know how to prompt, your homework is play around with a few. Just start experimenting. There's no wrong answer. I mean, even with the paid plan, you can use so much of it that even if for a month you quote unquote wasted your whole plan and time doing this, it's a learning experience. That's why whenever I get something new, I'm that kid that has to read the full instructions and then figure out every use case of the thing before I can start playing fully with it. I was a very boring kid, I think, to some extent because of it. But so that's what I did, is I just started playing around with prompts and seeing what it could do, how it could do it. It's gotten so much better over time. At first I hated ChatGPT, and people will remember me publicly saying this thing is not very good. it's gotten a lot better. So I'm very glad that they keep training it. Yeah, and so prompts you will get better at as you go. Definitely feeding it something that is too short will be a problem. Other ways you can even customize this is asking it to act as something. So act as an expert blog writer, act as a marketer, act as, I don't know, a professional dog trainer or something. If you can like give it context of what it's going to need to do, it can be helpful. I don't always find that like it makes the most massive difference with a blog post, because that is kind of what it's like. It's meant to be a writer, so it knows how to write. If you're asking it to do something a little bit different, then it kind of needs to like access that part of its brain to some extent. So I hope this helps you feel more confident with your prompting and that you have so much fun playing with it, because it's really fun to do. People often want to know the difference between ChatGPT 3.5 and GPT-4. So let's test it. I filled out kind of a funny little prompt for us based on the prompt template that I use most often. So we have, hey ChatGPT, please act as an expert blog post writer. For your reference, I run a blog about golden retrievers for millennial owners. The blog is written in an engaging and casual tone of voice, like talking to a friend. It's filled with helpful tips and anecdotes about my golden retriever, blah, 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 blah. I even said, don't mention Labrador retrievers, basically, just to give it something a bit extra of stuff not to do. And then I said, for our task, we're going to have it write us a paragraph about why golden retriever paws smell like Fritos, written for millennial female golden retriever owners who are unsure of if it's normal that their dog's feet smell this way. The goal is to explain that it is normal, but could be linked to a yeast issue if it's too pungent, and that my sister thinks my dog's feet smell like Fritos, but I do not smell it. So I'm just going to copy this so I can make sure I can use it again for our next test. But we're just going to hit go. Now, I will say this is not it writing. I accidentally hit that it should run when I just started with the Hey ChatGPT, so my bad. But we'll run it now. And so it's going as if it's like a full-on, I don't know, a full-on blog post, I guess, mentioning Netflix. I've never actually had a Frito, I should say that. It's included an emoji, which I didn't tell it to do, but it's written something here. So I'm going to have to copy this too, but let's just put it into a Google Doc. There we go. That way you guys can compare them. Okay, so now we're going to take our prompt again, and we're going to run another one. So we're going to do 3.5. and let it go. So 3.5 went way faster for some reason. Okay, perfect. So let's take this. There we go. Okay, so our first output from 4 is much shorter, but I think that's because I specifically said write a paragraph. So we got a paragraph, which does feel better to me, to be honest, because it's all I wanted it to do. So, hey there, fellow golden enthusiasts. So you've nestled in for your latest Netflix binge, and as you're reaching for those Fritos, you pause. That familiar corn chip scent isn't just coming from the bag, it's also wafting off your fur baby's paws. This is so funny. Don't freak out, it's totally a golden thing. Here's the scoop. This unique Frito-esque aroma is typically due to the natural bacteria and yeast that live on your pupper's skin. So it's done a lot of random nonsense. It has included like the detail of my sister catching a whiff of my dog, I guess. Yeah, if this scent ever transitions from casual snack to whoa, who dumped the entire chip aisle in here, might be worth a vet visit. I think this is cute. It's very, I said engaging and casual, and I think it went a little bit too far with that, but that's okay. You can always adjust your prompts. So we just wanted to see about the output. Now for GPT 3.5, it wrote more of like kind of what I think a blog post, and that might have been because I said like act as a blog writer, not sure, but it's gone a little bit further. Now it's also included a lot of emojis. I've never had it include this many emojis before, which is really interesting. So hey there, fabulous millennial golden retriever mamas. So it's also more specifically addressing who these people are, which is fine. I love it when they call them like a sidekick. I don't know why, but it does. So yeah, ever found yourself wondering why your beloved fur baby's paws smell like a bag of Fritos? Might seem like a quirky mystery, but fear not. You're not alone in this curious sniffing adventure. That is so weird. Unique scent to their paws is totally normal. Picture this, you're cuddling up with your golden nugget. Weird. Giving those adorable paws a little tickle, and suddenly you're hit with the aroma of your favorite snack aisle, Fritos. So pretty similar basis, I would say. It specifically mentions microbes. I don't know if that's better or worse, but it's still kind of the same content. So yeah, very, very similar. I would say it's basically got the same basis. And then, yeah, my sister smells it, but I don't, which the other one didn't really say that I don't. So yeah, it's basically just a longer version of the same piece of content. I would say they're pretty similar here. Now, what I think the first one did better is that it's actually a paragraph, which is what I asked for. I'm not saying that GPT-4 is so much better than GPT 3.5 for some things. Now, for this kind of thing where you are going to need to feed it the information, you can probably get the same output from either one. But if you're going to ask them for, here, let's go to new chat. Who was the last Super Bowl winner you've heard of? GPT-4 was trained a little bit more recently, so you can see last update on September 21. It was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I guess. I don't know if that's a real thing. Let's actually check. Who won the Super Bowl 2021? If my internet would work with us. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So that is correct. Now, if I want to ask 3.5, I'm going to actually just copy so I make sure I don't accidentally ask it in a different way, because I am liable to do that. Oh, interesting. So it's been updated then. So it knows the same thing. That's usually it doesn't know the same exact one. That's fine. I mean, this is the thing. I don't think it's the most massive difference. What I have found is that GPT-4 is more willing to listen to my specifics. I'm able to input longer content into it. It has the better memory of the content I give it, and it usually is more up to date, but apparently they're pretty on par for this one, so that's kind of cool. So yeah, GPT 3.5 technically stopped reading the internet in 2020. Apparently not though, because it knew this, but GPT-4 does know a little bit more stuff. So it might be able to pull a few more specifics for you. So I hope that helps you understand some of the differences. Ultimately, you'd have to test every single prompt with both of them to be able to see exactly the difference. None of us are going to do that. So, but this is just to show you that you can get by on 3.5 if that's if you're just not ready to pay for something yet. There are going to be limitations though. At a certain point, it's going to just stop remembering what you told it above, and you're going to have to re-prompt it, which can be frustrating. But that's going to change based on how much you're using it, and maybe in your use cases you don't need that. So I just hope this helps give you some context on the differences between the two so you understand them a bit better. In the intro section, I did go into more differences with things the plugins and stuff, but this is just the base content differences. Let's talk about EEAT and ChatGPT. Now, ChatGPT will make things up. Simple as that, especially if you don't provide information. And with Google, one of the things that they really want is personal experience and expertise. Now, ChatGPT can make something up for you if you just tell it to include that, or you can do this the right way. And the right way is to feed your personal experience and expertise into the prompts. If you're using GPT-4, you can put this in the custom instructions area. However, realistically, your expertise will stay the same, but your experience with the thing is likely to vary based on what you're working on. So if I'm writing about walking my dog versus taking my dog to beaches, two very different things. He's calm, cool, and collected on a walk. At a beach, he is gonna go into berserker mode and try to body slam a seagull. So very different things for me to talk about. That's why I really recommend adding it to your prompts. Now, not every prompt I've provided has an explicit space for you to say this, but you can always add it. So any prompt that you're using, even as simple as write a blog post about X, including, and then list your personal experience. including that I took my dog to the beach this weekend and he tried to body slam a seagull. There we go. That I took my dog to the beach this weekend and he tried to body slam a seagull, then splashed into the ocean as deep as he could go to find seaweed, and then played fetch to the point where like I could barely get him out of the water to go home. That adds a lot to an article, especially when it's a very specific article about something. So in the travel sphere where I spend most of my time, that is going to be super important. But it's really important for any niche. It's why we really recommend as SEOs, as good SEOs anyway, as ethical SEOs, do something you either know about or are going to learn about. Because otherwise you just don't know enough. Sorry, there's a fly going past. And if you don't know enough, then you're not going to be able to help your user. So having that experience is going to be super, super valuable. And we want to make sure we're clear about that. So original images will help with this as well, but largely it needs to be included in your content and not just in your intro. This is a massive mistake people make, where in their intro, they're like, hey, I don't know, I know about this thing, I've been to this place. And literally they will just say, I've been there. That's not enough, guys. Like, okay, so you've been there. You could have just stayed in the hotel room for the full week and never left the hotel room. We don't know. That's where actually talking about, okay, this beach is really slippery, so like be careful. Like, I don't know, even my water shoes slipped here. You can see how that is a lot better than this beach is slippery. Because even when I was saying it at first, I bet in your head you were like, well, she could have just Googled that to find out. Yeah, I could have. That's why you want to have the specific examples. So make sure you're being really clear. When I'm doing my outlines, I will actually put my specific experience into the content brief for each section. If you don't know what that means, don't worry, go watch the outlining video and it will make sense. But if you're not like specifically adding those notes, not going to help you. So we really want to make sure that you're feeding that information to ChatGPT. You cannot get mad at it for not including personal experience that you've never told it about. That's just irrational. So make sure that you're stating it very, very clearly. You can also overstate, like, here's my personal experience, incorporate some of it, and then have it incorporate it at its own leisure. So then it's not necessarily going to be every 2 sentences that it says, I lived in 22 countries and have, I don't know, 1,800 stamps, whatever. Because sometimes if you tell it to include a specific sentence, like if you put it in quotes, it's just going to keep saying it over and over, and then it sounds really weird. So you do want it to be added naturally. Now, what do you do if you have no personal experience with the thing? Hopefully you still have expertise. So, okay, I don't know, I haven't done SEO for every single niche in the world, but I've done SEO for a lot of niches, for both myself and for clients. So I can kind of extrapolate and be like, okay, I've worked on, I'm not gonna make up a number, I've worked on 1,000 sites in the last year. Here are some common issues. And then we'd go down and talk about maybe a niche I've never worked on, like, I don't know, cats. I'm not a big fan of cats, very allergic. But so we'd say, okay, for a cat niche site. And so, well, I haven't actually had a cat niche site myself. I've had a pet site, generally, more about dogs. And I've worked on a number of blogs. So I can just say that. That's okay. I also really, really recommend getting specific with your experience and your expertise. So like if you're like, okay, I've been to over 2 countries, what? Like that's just awkward. Just say the number. And yes, it will technically go out of date at a certain point, but people are like, I think they understand that a lot more than you trying to future-proof it and say, I've been to over this many. And like I tried that for myself for a while when someone told me to, and like I'm going back and fixing it because I hate it. I think it's so awkward and just weird. So it's definitely better to be like, okay, for something specific like that, where it's like the number of places you've been or how many dogs you've had or whatever, try to be really specific. So for your expertise, define it. Super helpful. Now, if you've listened to this whole thing and you're like, Nina, what is expertise versus experience? The best analogy I can give is that like basically experience means I've done something similar. Or pardon me, expertise means I've done something similar. Experience means I've done that thing. So your expertise could be that you went to med school. But if you're a podiatrist, you won't have experience doing heart surgery. So while you do have the expertise for that topic, you don't have the experience doing that surgery. That's the difference. Even for travel, it could be like, okay, I've been to Aruba. Okay, but did you go to this city in Aruba? Did you do this thing in Aruba? If not, you don't have the experience, but you have the expertise. That's where that difference comes in. So I do add both as much as I can. My expertise I usually put into the what's it called? Oh my God, I've already forgot. Custom instructions or into the prompt, but the experience I always add into each individual prompt. Just that way you're not like, I don't know, getting it confused, trying to tell it to include that your dog wears Crocs in a post about, I don't know, alt text or something. So try to be more clear as best you can. And ultimately, maybe you need to add it at the end, but ChatGPT can add personal anecdotes and things like that for you if you just build them into the instruction. So before you head out and do everything else for this like whole course basically and start writing with it, start remembering that ultimately this all comes down to helping users. So we want to make sure that we are providing the most helpful information for our users. And to some extent that means getting them to trust us, because it's not helpful if they don't trust it. And they'll trust you if you talk about your personal experience and expertise. So make it really, really clear and keep talking about it throughout the post. If you just put it in an intro, it feels very fake and weird. And to be honest, I would rather someone skip it in the intro and have it later. Don't do that though, still put it in your intro. But at least in like the general parts of it, that's where I want the experience of like, okay, I went to this hike and it was really hard to find parking. It's in this like weird, like, I don't know, you won't even see it till you're suddenly there. So don't be afraid to like just brake on the highway. Everyone's really used to it, sort of a thing. That is so helpful because then I can actually know that versus someone being like, you park on the side of Highway 2 or something and you're like, where, what? Like, are you sure that what, where? Highway 2 is big. I don't even know if there's a Highway 2. I made up a highway. So be very careful with that, and ultimately use all of this knowledge to make sure you're writing the most valuable content for your user. So go have fun, and I can't wait for you to learn more about how to use ChatGPT for your blog. Research is the most important step in writing a blog post, in my opinion. It should really take you the longest amount of time, honestly. And even if you have personal experience with something, you're not going to know everything. None of us are experts on absolutely every detail of everything and need no other help to write it. So yes, long term, you'll do less of this, especially the more you know your niche, but there's still specifics that you're not going to like know off the top of your head the exact centimeters of like the crate should be for dog travel, I don't know, like my dog has Crocs, so like the exact ergonomic benefits of blah, I don't know. There's stuff I don't know. Like I've used the product, but I don't necessarily know every single detail about it. I don't know all the vet recommendations for these versus various other boots. I don't know like statistics for dogs on hot pavement off the top of my head. So there are things you're gonna have to check. And so I don't want you to think that I'm saying like write on things you don't know. I 100% am an advocate for write what you know, write what you've experienced, but you're not going to know every single thing. We're not like, I don't know, we're not some sort of android. We need to actually double check information, even just knowing the specific like opening times of a restaurant. That's all research. So research is really important to me, and I want to show you how I can speed up some of it with AI. Now, you still should do more research. Like always do research, and don't be afraid if it takes a while. One of the first reasons I got into AI, beyond the fact that I was working 4 jobs and needed a bit of help speeding things up, is because I needed to speed things up so I could spend the amount of time I needed to spend on research. It's such an important thing. So we're going to use 2 tools today to do this. We're going to use the Bing AI, and then we are also going to use ChatGPT. Now, as y'all know, ChatGPT cannot access the internet in real time to get like up-to-date information the same way. So that's where we're going to rely on the Bing AI. However, ChatGPT can be super useful to us because with certain plugins, I'm using the Web Pilot plugin right now because the link reader one is no longer available to me, and it breaks my heart every single time. If it's available to you, use that one, it's better, but they seem to have gotten rid of it or something. I don't know. So use this turned on, and then it's going to allow you to check certain web pages or read files, which is going to help you do better research. It's just going to make like your life a bit easier. So let's walk through how I use both of these. We're going to start with ChatGPT, since the name of this course is the ChatGPT blogging blueprint, but then we'll go over to the Bing AI afterwards. So I will also say there are other plugins that you can use to read PDFs in a different way. So Chat with PDF is probably the most popular one that I've tried myself a while ago, but I don't tend to use PDFs. We are going to check a PDF, so I guess it is a good idea for us to have an option. So let's just install one that I'm going to be able to just upload the file for, though. That way we can do this quickly. So when I come to ChatGPT, it's not going to be able to like search the web immediately for stuff. It can help me do some basic research, like what year was Canada founded? I don't know. We didn't learn that in history class. Or maybe we did, and I don't know, I used to write novels back then, so I didn't pay attention. So here we go. Now I know the year Canada was founded. Would I double check that? Yes. However, this is like ChatGPT is trained on a large percentage of the internet up to 2021. So it has a pretty good knowledge base. So for something like this that is a concrete fact from so long ago, I'm pretty certain it knows what it's doing. That being said, if it felt completely incorrect, I would adjust it. I did go to the 150th birthday party for Canada, so like just working backwards with math, this year makes sense. Now, if I wanted to do more research, I'm not necessarily going to just keep asking it questions. Like if I asked, who is the current mayor of Toronto? I don't believe it'll know unless I have WebPilot engaged. You can see here it's going like using WebPilot to try and learn this. So this does enable it to know more of the internet. Is it the most perfect thing in the world? No, it still definitely glitches, but it's a lot better. So you can see Olivia Chow took office on July 12th, 2023. It's currently August 18th. So like this is just a month ago, and it's getting that accurate information. That's why I really recommend, if you want to do research with ChatGPT, have GPT-4. 3.5 cannot run plugins, so it can't do this with you. And what I do is I turn this on even before I start writing, if I'm going to write inside of ChatGPT, just in case I need its help fact checking things. It can just help me like in the moment get that extra bit of information I might not know. So this is true. Olivia Chow is our new mayor of Toronto. I say our, I don't live there anymore, but I was born there. So it still feels like that's my home, I guess. Another use case here is I could Google, so here I've Googled PDFs. I actually need to get a web page though first. So let's just Google dog, flying with dog WestJet. Why can't I type today? I think I get like performance anxiety typing in front of y'all. So here I just want to get the web page, and I'm going to copy the URL, and I'm going to say, read this web page, please, and summarize the important details I need to know. And so WebPilot is going to be able to do this. If you just ask ChatGPT-4 without any of these, like there are other plugins as well, WebPilot is the one I've found does best. If you ask it to do this without that enabled, it's not going to be able to read it. It's going to say, oh, I'm like a language model, I don't know how to do that. You have to enable the plugin. And so here you can see it's giving me more information, like the fact that you have to call by phone to do this, or that there's a kennel fee. It gives you even the size of the kennel. So then if I need to follow up on this, I'm like, great, okay, this gives me some information. Maybe I want to know more about the kennel size or sizes. Maybe there's extra information I'd like to know. You can just have a conversation with ChatGPT because now it knows everything on that web page. So at this point, I could say, let's try and find something. The problem is I do know most of this because I've traveled with my dog, not with WestJet. They were problematic. Okay, so can you tell me more about the kennel size restrictions? Or you could say, does it mention snub-nosed dogs? Does it, actually that's a good question. Does it mention flying with snub-nosed dogs like pugs? But here you can see it gives me even more information about the kennel, like what isn't allowed to happen. Who would put their poor dog in a duffel bag for a full plane ride? That would just suck. I mean, there's no ventilation in there. There's a reason those things reek after you go to the gym. So now that I've asked this, you can see again, like every time it runs WebPilot, it's like looking for more information that it didn't already check for before. So here we go. I don't know why it talks about, I guess because they sometimes like put snub-nosed and like pit bulls into the same area. I wouldn't necessarily say snub-nosed dogs are aggressive, but yeah, it says respiratory issues during travel, more susceptible to heat. So it doesn't explicitly mention, but many other airlines have problems with it, so probably not a good idea. So there you go. You got the information there. So this is how you can use ChatGPT to do research. It's also a really good way that you can get it to read complex documents that you just can't understand yourself. Like, I am not a vet, so I don't know all of like the scientific stuff around dogs and Latin names and body structure. I just don't know all those technical things. So I could find a research paper by a vet online, maybe talking about flying with a snub-nosed dog if I want to learn more about like why the respiratory issues have more problems up high, or why they are more susceptible to heat and stress, and then feed that into ChatGPT. So give it a link to where that paper is hosted, and then be able to have a conversation with ChatGPT, kind of like you're talking to the person who wrote the paper. So this was first introduced to me by Dr. Murray Haynes, who was doing it for some sort of like very technical article. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like, I wish I'd had that during like my medieval lit degree, or during any of like the weird other classes I took when I didn't know what my degree should be, that were often like science-y. And I could have been like, hey, what is this research paper actually saying? Does this talk about this thing that I might need for my paper? And if so, then I could go in and actually read it to be like, okay, is this, like, now that I know this is relevant to me, I'm not wasting time reading every book in the library trying to figure out if any of them mention, I don't know, wells in Chaucer's works. Like, we did some weird stuff. I did a lot on like talking birds in medieval dream poetry. Yeah, the epitome of a useless degree. So another way you can use this is to use PDFs. So I searched for file type PDF on Google to bring up PDF documents related to, and I just did flying with dogs. You could do anything you want. Just that way we had something kind of related to my knowledge, so I could double check some of the information. But you can see we've got a lot of different pieces of information here. So we even have like the US Border Protection Government option for this, which is really interesting. So this is giving me, like, first of all, it's long, but it's also going to give me a lot of information that's going to be very detailed. Do I want to skim all of this to figure out what I need? Not really. I would much rather be able to have ChatGPT synthesize it for me, or even tell me if it covers the topic I need so I can go in and read it. So I will say I am not perfect at making this work. And this isn't a plugin that I am always familiar with. So let's see if I put this in right. I might need to feed it. There we go. Please provide direct link to the PDF. Okay, well, I need to figure out how to do that. I'm gonna pause and I'll be right back. I always do this. Okay, I figured it out. For anyone like me who always does, like, and I do this every single freaking time. To be fair, I don't read PDFs that often, but it's this button here, and you get the link there. I always try to copy this one, or I copy it from Google, and then it gets mad at me. But anyway, you just feed it that link, and then you can see it works. So here we get this synthesized information. So if I specifically want to know what vaccinations does my dog need to travel to the US from Canada, does it mention this? Oh, I need to stop generating first. There we go. So I'll take a break and I'll come back in an hour and we'll finish this. Okay, so we've hit our cap. Sometimes this happens, so here you go. Now you can see what happens when you hit the cap. But basically, you would just have a conversation with it, as you can see. As I did before, it's exactly the same thing. You would say, does it mention this? Does it talk about this? What does it say about this? And you can then have a conversation to understand it more in plain English as well, for things that are more detailed or more, like more clinical even for certain things. So that's how I use ChatGPT for research. Now, to use Bing AI is pretty similar. My main use case for it is to tell it to check certain websites though. So unlike ChatGPT, where I'm gonna go out and find the website and find every instance of it, I can just ask like Bing to find any mention of something. So what breeds of dogs are not allowed to fly on planes? And so when you come to Bing search, you just hit chat, and then I always select more precise because I'm looking for it to give me factual information. I don't need it to write a blog post for me, which is the more creative side of it. I don't need it to, rewrite the data as much. I don't care about that. What I want it to do is actually give me the facts and tell me where it found that information. So if I hit like the little arrowy thing, it's going to search. It does take a moment. I will say it's a bit slow, but that's because it is sourcing information in real time. And it then gives you the sources for all of the information, which I really appreciate. So here I'm able to get like kind of a summary, and then it gives me a couple more specific pieces of information. And I get everything hyperlinked with where it came from, so I can double check all of this information. I can go read more about it, and now I have specific sources that I may not have found just by Googling this. Yes, oftentimes they are pretty similar or they are the same sources, but let's say article number 10 talked about like the fee that it costs. Well, if the first 9 didn't, and maybe I was like short on time, maybe I don't read number 10. I would have missed this information. And then you can see it even gives you some more questions you can ask, or you can just ask whatever you want. If you select new topic, it'll open a new window for you. And it does save the recent activity on the side, so you can go back and read it if you want. If you want to delete it, maybe you search something weird, you can delete it there, just so you guys know. So what I like to do as well is I will say, find on reddit.com any mention of flying with a pug. And then you'll see it does searching cite reddit.com. So it's going to specifically search on a forum for me, which can be really helpful to find personal information, to find like user experiences talking about like when they actually flew with this dog. And the thing is, sometimes like these things, the forums aren't always going to rank for keywords that we search generally. So this is a really great way to find some that you might have missed otherwise. And I really like getting to read user experience for this stuff. And usually I'll have to search Reddit myself to find all this information. And if you've done that, you know it's not the best user experience to find the specific details you necessarily want. So this can be a really good summary to help get you going. Or even if you're thinking about like, what are some questions people have around my topic, here is a way to find them on Reddit. I find this super helpful. I've been doing it for a bit and I think it's really, really useful. It does work for other sites as well. So yeah, if there's maybe WebMD, you want to do some weird searches on there, it'll search it for you. So it'll give you as much information as it can. It summarizes it, and then again, it'll hyperlink wherever it found the information, so you can go in and read the source material. You can even ask it to give you a few more if you want to, and it will keep giving you more information. So this is a great way to be able to get more text and more help. It is technically capable of like reading a post and then giving you information about it. I don't find it quite as helpful or as user-friendly as ChatGPT for that. So if I'm gonna like be analyzing a link or summarizing a post to figure out if it's worth reading, I do all of that in ChatGPT. Is it unhelpful to have Microsoft Edge and ChatGPT in Chrome open at the same time? Kinda, yeah, but I don't know. This is how I do it now. I like it. I just keep doing it. So I don't find any major issues doing it this way. I don't find that, see, that's what I don't like, is I always accidentally scroll down and then it moves me to search. Yeah, gripes aside, it works really well for this, and ChatGPT works well for what it works well for. Now, another thing you can do with ChatGPT is install different Chrome extensions. So if you were to search Chrome extensions ChatGPT, you will find so many. There's just 1,000,001 of them. I guess I just picked one this time, but if you go to general extensions and search ChatGPT, you'll find all sorts of things here. Now, I cannot guarantee how good all of them are, but I will tell you one that I've been using. If I can find it, there we go. So I use ChatGPT for YouTube, and what that does is if I go to a YouTube video, just pick a random one, and so here you can see ChatGPT will summarize it for me if I want it to. So I can ask it to summarize, and it's going to tell me what the point of the video is and some highlights. Now, I use this because I do have ADD, and I don't know if I want to watch, I mean, this video isn't long, it's like, 2 minutes and 33 seconds? Even so, I can barely get through a 1-minute TikTok video and focus on it. So for me, knowing if it's going to have the information I need to actually benefit me is super helpful. And this is where I'll come to read the summary of it to see, okay, does it actually talk about something helpful to me? And for longer form videos, anything like 10, 20 minutes, you're saving so much time not having to watch it. Same with the highlights. I really like that it does this is kind of a newer update to it, to be honest. When I first downloaded it, it just gave me 2 sentences of not the most helpful stuff, but it's gotten way better. And so it actually gives me more details now so that I can get a summary, first of all, if that's all I want. And sometimes that is what I want, to know if it's going to be the exact same as the other 20 videos I've watched on the thing I'm currently hyperfixating on, or researching, usually hyperfixating, to be fair. So gives me some extra information. Or you can just show transcript and then copy the transcript into ChatGPT and have it explain based on the transcript for you. For really long videos, you're going to have to do this in stages. So that's why I find the summary is a really great way to figure out if it's actually useful to you. It will also do a transcript over here. It's not massively different other than the fact that it has less time codes. So you could copy this too. Very much up to you. This is a free Chrome extension. You don't need to have GPT-4 for it. I've been using it since before I had GPT-4. And you can even copy the text that it has up here if you want. I find it very good. Now, if you think it did a shit job, you can also rerun it and see if it does a better job. But this is just a good extension for checking YouTube videos of personal accounts of using the thing or going to the place or whatever. I do think YouTube is an underrated place to get extra kind of information, and clearly the person has the thing or has done the thing if they're in a YouTube video at the place or holding the thing. So that can be really beneficial. And then honestly, this one I first installed just because I was hyper fixating on setting up car camping, which I haven't done. Just a weird 3-day binge. And so I kept watching them, and so many just had the same thing. So this helped me not have to watch 1,000,001 things that were exactly the same. But you can see with in the Chrome library, web store, there's so many extensions you'll find that can do all sorts of stuff. So if there is something that you need some help with for your research, if you do need something that is going to double check things for you or summarize certain things, this is where you can find something that'll do that. A lot of them are fairly similar. So you don't need 1,000,001 of these. They will eventually start to slow down your Chrome. But if there's a certain use case you definitely need, you do want it to be able to be on a sidebar for you, kind of like the Bing AI often is, If you want it to, like just summarize any web page, I guess, as well as any video, that's also doable. So you'll see that there's just so many options here for ones that might be helpful to you. I won't say that I've used all of them because I've definitely not, but there's plenty here that might be beneficial to you and to your research. Or it might even be a whole other section of research just to go through them all. So this has been researching with ChatGPT and kind of a bonus of Bing AI and some Chrome extensions. So I hope this really helps you create a better foundation for your articles. It is very important, I will say again, to have well-researched articles. Anyone can just read the first 10 results on Google and go from there, but that's not gonna set you apart from competitors. That's not gonna help your user the most, and that's not gonna really provide beyond even personal experience, just like expertise. So I really recommend taking the time to do this research. And with AI, you can now do it so much faster and really be able to give the best information without it taking you 20 years of like wandering a library to try and find all of it. So I want you to pick a topic, do some research, and I will see you in the next video where we are going to actually outline your blog post. Are you not sure what to write on? That's totally normal. And if you're struggling to figure out how you should plan some content, maybe brainstorm something new to write about, maybe even like how to fill out that pillar that you're writing about at the moment, you've only got like 8 out of 10 ideas, that's where ChatGPT can come in. Now, I will say, do not use it for keywords. I will say it again. Do not use ChatGPT 3.5 or 4 for keywords. That's because it's not meant to have that data. So when we use something like Key Search or SEMrush or Ahrefs, it's pulling data from a specialized database more made for bloggers. The best ChatGPT can do is pull from out-of-date Google AdWords data that it barely has access to, and then general things it just thinks it sees online. But again, it's out of date. So it's just not helpful to us. Even the plugins I've tried that are like a part of GPT-4 that are vaguely related to SEO, they're all terrible so far. At time of recording, I have found none that are worthwhile. So avoid all of that. Use this more for topic ideas, maybe newsletter topics as well, social media topics, but use this as a guide. Always, always, always follow it up with your own double checking with keyword tools, with analytics, things like that. Like, this is just meant to help you. It is not meant to replace you. It genuinely can't. It also cannot replace keyword research tools for blogging. And if you're not using keywords for blogging, you are already like losing the blogging game, basically. So please, please, please do this the right way. I do not want to get upset emails saying, ChatGPT told me this was a good keyword. It cannot do that. That's not what it's made to do. So please remember that, and then we'll dive into brainstorming. So the easiest way to start with this is just to ask ChatGPT to give you a list of stuff. So, hey ChatGPT. I always want to say like, hey ChatGPT, how you doing? I don't know why. It's like something I fight doing every single time I write a prompt. Hey ChatGPT, please help me brainstorm 10 blog post ideas. Now, if I just ran that, it's going to come up with whatever the heck it wants. So we do want to focus it a bit more. What works really well is to tell it what your blog is about, who you are, and kind of what you're working on, what your pillars are, what you're working with so far. So my blog, She Knows SEO, is a marketing blog about using search engine optimization to build a blog that will generate passive income, with a specific focus on travel blogs. Our main content silos are SEO and travel blogging.
We also cover AI writers as a pillar. Then you can also, I'm getting ahead of myself. So we can run this, but I then want to say, who are we talking to? Who's our users? Our ideal audience are millennial women who want to run a successful blog. That's not my real avatar. I'm just trying to name one quite quickly. So we just want to give it as much detail as we can about who we are, why we do what we do. So what's your mission? What's your goal? Who are you talking to? The more you can fill that out, the better. The more information you provide, the more specific it'll be and the more helpful. You can even give an example of a few past posts. So some examples of our most popular posts are Jasper versus ChatGPT, AI writers, Mediavine requirements, travel blogs that accept guest posts, just naming some off the top of my head, and how I made 100K in June 2023. Please suggest 10 posts that fit with our blog. Oh, I guess I already said that at the top, my bad. But here we go. So now we're gonna get a bunch of different suggestions of what I could talk about. Does it know everything I already have on my blog? No, it doesn't. So of course it might suggest things that you already have. It might also suggest some random nonsense. For example, the intersection of passion and profit sounds ridiculous to me. Monetizing your blog without sacrificing authenticity makes more sense, but this weird, I don't know, I think intersection is what gets me there. But here we have lots of different things. So we've got some options here. Are these keywords? No, they are still not keywords. To be honest, I said topics. I could have said keywords. It'll then just give you a couple words. I want topics, that way I have ideas of things I could then go into. So for example, trends in 2023. I haven't written on that. First of all, because I like to write evergreen stuff, that's not going to be evergreen. Then I have the power of AI specifically for travel blogging. I don't have an article on that. I have AI writing generally, but not for travel blog specifically. I also haven't talked about other things beyond SEO, since that's really my focus. So if these don't work, I could say, no, I don't like any of these. Let's focus on a specific pillar. Let's look for 10 blog post ideas on AI for travel blogs. And if you want to get even more specific, you could feed it the links or the titles to your posts about travel blogging already. So this is where having a navigational silo page really comes in handy. If I go to sheknowsseo.co and I think it's under my SEO page. Yeah, so go down to my AI stuff, get out of the way, pop up here. I could even say, these are the ones we have already. So we'll let it run, and then I'm going to show you how it'll work if I give it ones I already have, and we can see the difference. So here we have AI in the future of travel blogging, predictions for the next decade, chatbots for travel blogs. It's something I've been experimenting more with. It's pretty cool. Using AI to predict travel trends, also very interesting. AI generated content, pros, cons, and best practices for travel bloggers. Geez. But you can see we're getting a lot of stuff here that is more specific now. Is any of this a keyword? Say it with me. No, it is not a keyword. So I would still need to go and do keyword research for this. So I can edit this though and say, here are the article titles I've already published. And then give it my titles. So now it's going to know what I've already worked on. And this can help it figure out if there's something it should reference or avoid. So for example, if you were doing something on visiting Rome and you've already covered restaurants, the Colosseum, and I don't know, date walking tour sort of things, it would know to avoid those. So that's going to help give it an idea of what not to reproduce. And the more and more you have on a topic, the more you want it to avoid writing on those things and suggesting it. So this is a great way to kind of pull it away from that. Now, the way that I like to work with this is I'll have some of these come up, And then I'll start asking it, okay, what else could we, like, what more could we say? How could we fill in the gaps? If I fed it a pillar that had way more articles, like this is quite a small pillar on my site, if I fed it these 3 and said, okay, here's what I have so far, what else can I do to answer more user questions about this topic? What else can I do to complete this pillar on my site? This content pillar, whatever word you want to use. Talking to it like it is a virtual assistant or somebody that like is working with you on your site is the best way to do this. So I can say, great, I like the chatbot idea. What questions might a user have about chatbots? And this can give me either more ideas for separate blog posts or for part of the main blog post. So yeah, what is a chatbot? That's a great question. What are the costs? Is it going to slow down my site? It's probably another one I would think of, but that's for me. It's going to come up with other stuff as well. The privacy one, wouldn't have thought of that. Multiple languages, might not have thought of that. So here we've got a bunch, there we go, site speed. So we're getting a bunch of questions here, and you can see it's not limited. It's going to keep thinking of as many as it can, and we can then go on from there. So filling in the gaps for content, asking it more questions, working with it to develop these things is really, really strong. Even feeding it keywords that are already like in the plan, even if they aren't published, can help still to be like, okay, here are my 10 keywords. I need 2 more to finish this content pillar. What else could I talk about? That's a great way to do this. You could ask, what are some, really, you can just ask it anything, honestly. I'm having trouble like picking one thing to think to ask. But just ask more questions and treat it like, what could I do to improve this content pillar? What could I do to, to plan my content better for this section? How could I make sure that women feel safe solo traveling? Whatever. This doesn't necessarily just have to be about picking a topic. You can even use brainstorming for kind of mapping out extra questions people might have around topics. You can use it to brainstorm a course. You can use it to brainstorm a marketing plan. You can use it to even like group your content together and create pillars. So you can say, so forget the above is the command you need to use to have it ignore what you did before. So forget the above. We're going to start again. Technically, you could just like start a new chat. Sometimes I don't want to. So forget the above. I have 3 categories for my site's content that I want to use. Please sort the following keywords into the categories. The categories are SEO, backlinks, and AI, I guess. Actually, I'm trying to figure out a way that I could get it to sort things without me needing to shuffle them first, because they're already categorized. Let's actually just have it, we can just have it suggest categories. I have a bunch of posts under the general category, travel blogging. Can you suggest some subcategories or pillars based on the posts to help me organize my content? And then we're just going to copy all of these. And so here we go. It's going to give us suggestions of what we can do and then which posts go in which section. So you can also do this for keywords of yours if you've like got a very general plan and now you've like decided to niche down more. You can have it organize things for you, get your categories sorted, see how many things you have per section. Now, if you provide it, it can like the categories for it, it does work a little bit better. I would first brainstorm categories with it. And then once you land on the ones you want, because maybe for this one, I don't want to have guest blogging as its own thing and just have like one underneath it. Because to me, that's also like kind of a part of blogging basics, I guess, because I think guest posting should be something you start the second your first post is live, basically. Then I would have it adjust that with me. So even like tools and resources and education and courses, I would combine those. So work with it to determine the categories first, then have it reshuffle the things into those areas. There's even a plugin. I'm not a very visual person, I will fully admit. So there's a plugin called Show Me Diagrams. And so you can even create diagrams with this and create like a mind map that you can use to keep track of your categories and like the way everything's kind of waterfalling down. So for example, like typically I would picture your niche at the top and then you go down a sub level, kind of like a genealogy thing. And you'd have, let's say, your 3 main categories. I really recommend having 2 ideally, but like you'll do what you will. And then beneath that, you'd have content clusters or keyword clusters of topics. So that would be where, like, let's say your niche is solo female travel. One of your pillars is solo female travel in Rome. That's super specific, but whatever. We're going to go with that because I'm trying to pick somewhere I've been so I can reference it. Then you might have a keyword cluster around, or let's say, Italy. Then you might have a keyword cluster around Rome. You might have a keyword cluster around Tuscany. You might even have a keyword cluster around walking tours and just like walking tours all over the country. And that would be the way you kind of break that up. But if you're more visual than I am, you might need visual kind of like representation of that. And the diagrams thing can help you do that. I'm not great at it, but it does work. So that's where I would go for that. And then really for brainstorming, just ask questions. Great. Are there any blog posts you think would help support those categories for my user that I am missing? Like, just talk to it. Talk to it like it's a person. And it's not going to be like perfect. There's definitely going to be things that you need to work with. So like I think, but like setting up your first travel blog step by step, that's a great topic. Leveraging Instagram, if I knew how to do that, that'd be great. Definitely need to do an email marketing one. Sponsored posts, digital products, plugins, like some of these things are in my general section, but there's still lots of stuff happening here that is very helpful for me to like do more to round out these categories. And now that it knows what I talk about and how I talk about it, and it knows my categories, so it knows what to filter it into, it's more specific. So you can see how these have gotten more specific than anything we had before. Keep talking to it, train it, and remember it's kind of like bringing on a baby intern who doesn't know your company, so they have tons of ideas, like, and they think very differently to the way you think. Because like this is the thing, you're just one person. It's why I love talking to my team and getting their ideas for stuff, because I don't know everything. So if I can get someone else's idea or opinion, it can really help me think outside the box or behave differently or appeal to more people, because like I'm quite neurospicy, so like I think very weirdly sometimes, and some people need to rein me in, some people need to help like me expand. Both are great. So it's kind of like bringing on that baby intern who has all the ideas and they just need your help focusing them so that they can use their creativity to help your business. That's really the way this works. So there's no specific like exact command that works the best. However, you can start with what it should do, a lot of like as much context as you can give it, the better it's going to run to help you. Now, you can also tell it, no, I don't like those things. So if you hate all of them, don't be shy, correct it. Say, no, I don't like those. They don't really like adhere to my brand. Try again. You could even feed it all of your posts already and say, okay, what prompt should I give you to like come up with a list of ideas like this? Like talk to ChatGPT and be like, how can I get you to do more of this? And it'll tell you. It's amazing, honestly. I think brainstorming is like probably the most common use case for ChatGPT, and there's a reason for it because it is very, very good at that. And it can be very creative in thinking of things. Even with this course, I asked what are some questions people might have? What are some things I can cover? What are some like, I don't know, different use cases I might not use it for? Now, a lot of those were absolutely useless to the point of blogging, so that was unhelpful to us. But there's a lot of opportunities there. And so if you can just discuss it with ChatGPT as though you're having a conversation with a person, like think of it like you're emailing someone on your team. Treat it like a person. It's the best thing I can tell you. And so many people, like even as long as I've said that for a while, so many people still don't do it. And I just don't understand, I guess, how many times I need to say it. So I'm going to say it again. Treat it like a person and ask it its opinion. Ask it for ideas. Ask it for like, what's a good marketing strategy for these posts? How should I be repurposing these posts? I mean, there's people that have done those whole experiments of like, I'll ask it how I can make $10,000 in a month and then I'll implement it or whatever. Like, people are doing that and have had success with it. Is it super legitimate? No, many people have failed with it, but like, it's still doable. So always filter it through yourself and don't just do whatever it says. Just like with checking keywords, make sure it actually adheres to your brand, your values, helps your blog, is something that actually has a keyword associated with it. Always filter it through you, but it's very, very helpful. So I highly recommend brainstorming with ChatGPT to fill things out a bit more if you're struggling for extra content. Now, I also do it inside of a post that I'm already writing. So I'd be like, here's the post. What other questions would my user have? What else could I talk about here that would help someone? I know other people who do this for interviews, like they're going to do an interview with somebody, so they'll train it on that person, like the interviewee. And so, like, let's say I'm interviewing my dog Theo. I'm just looking at him right now. He's snoring and it's really cute. So here, like, Theo is a 2.5-year-old golden retriever. He's a red golden. He's very short for his size, but with massive paws. He loves to swim. Give it like their whole bio, sort of a thing. If they have a website, you can even feed it the website and do that via the I would forget the name of that plugin. Web Pilot. Feed it the Web Pilot plugin, have it read their site with their about page, and then say, like, this is the person I'm interviewing. What are some interesting questions I could ask them? What are some questions my user, feed in your ideal user, would want to know about them? And then also, like, if you have a specific platform like a podcast or YouTube channel that's going on, also tell it what the point of your channel is. Because if you just say, like, okay, I'm interviewing Theo, my channel is about SEO though, it's not going to know to ask him about SEO. Like, it's not going to address that. It's going to talk about like fetching balls in the lake, which is why he'd be a terrible guest for an SEO podcast, even though he's like our unofficial branch manager. But you'd want to be careful about like filtering it so it knows who your audience is, what you're about, and who this person is, to be able to figure out questions that would be beneficial for them. Now, this can be used for so many things. So there's really no limit to the brainstorm potential. It's just about coming up with how you would like to brainstorm with it. So just take some time to play around with this. The thing that I like most about the brainstorming is that there's no rules. Like, there's no prompt you have to have. You just have to give it context, and then you can brainstorm some freaking amazing things. Like, that's how I came up with calculators with it. Like, it just, I was like, what else could I make a calculator for? And then it gave me a ton of options. So asking it to come up with ideas is great. I mean, I've asked it, like, hey, what could I make a quiz about for this site? What would be a digital product I could sell or an ebook I could sell for this site? What are some bonuses I could offer for this thing? Literally endless ideas. So I hope you have tons of fun playing around with this and asking it to brainstorm things that are beneficial for your business. Just remember to add some context, and then just keep track of it, because there's going to be so many ideas. So I do recommend opening a new chat with each different thing you're brainstorming, so you can come back to all of them, and it's like a little bit less chaotic than telling it to forget the above and then barreling on with more stuff.
Hey everybody, let's talk about how you can outline a blog post with ChatGPT. Now, there's kind of two versions of this. We'll talk about the one I do most often, and then we'll talk about the other version that's like very, very, very similar. So don't worry, we're going to cover both versions, but I do want to show you the one that I do most often, because I do think it is the better way to do it, to be honest with you. So what I have here, I just created a really rough version of an outline for this post. Now, if I was writing this for real, I would definitely do a little bit more than what I did here. But basically, I looked at one of the competitors, got a vague sense of the user intent, and then kind of wrote an outline myself. What I would do if I'm actually using this method is I would go more in depth into this. So for example, if it was a list of things to do, if it was different like ways to style something, if it was
answering a question about my dog. I don't know. There's so many options. I would pull as much information as I could first and fill it out with as much detail as I can. Typically, I don't really use AI for my outlines. I just kind of double check with AI. So I go through all of the top 10 competitors and make sure that like I have included everything they have to the best of my ability. I look at the LSI words, I pull in secondary keywords. I do all of it manually usually. When I do use something like ChatGPT to help me with this, what I'm basically doing is just verifying stuff. Because at a certain point, you've got so many different things and pieces of information you're trying to include, you might miss something. Or, for example, you just kind of get lazy with it some days and you need a bit of help. So I would create a much more detailed outline than this. Usually my outlines are at least 200 words. I do go pretty intensely into an outline, but I am definitely an outline girly, and I think that they are just so important for setting yourself on the right track. So we've got this. This is kind of something for us to work off of for what our purposes are. So you just want to start with an outline and copy it. Then you're going to go to ChatGPT and you're going to say, hey, ChatGPT, please act as an expert blog writer. And now this is where you're going to like fill in all that information about what your site is for, who your site is for, what your site's about, all of those good details. Now, I have those right now in the custom instructions, so I don't need to do it again. You can kind of get away without doing it for this purpose too. I find for the outline, like it's a little hit or miss, but you can usually get away without defining that stuff. So I'm just gonna add in like the basics. This is for my blog, She Knows SEO, which is about SEO for blogs. There we go. I'm going to give them the most basic information, and then now we're going to get into the details about the post. So this post is about how to write alt text. The purpose of the post is to help our users understand what alt text is and how to use it most effectively, and to advise them to avoid keyword stuffing or skipping their alt text. So now we have the information about what our post is about and what the purpose is. Because like realistically, you should know that going in at this point, even before you're doing your outline. You should have an idea of like why. What's your why, sort of a thing. Then I'm gonna say, here is my outline. Paste that in. And if you want to be more specific with it, you can also use markdown language. So markdown language is where you're gonna put like one hashtag means an H1, two hashtags means an H2, and you could just go through and do that for all of them so it understands the hierarchy. I don't usually do this unless I have multiple hierarchies. So for example, if it's like a title and then the H2s, I think that's fine. But if I'm going into H3s and H4s, I do think it's important to make it clear to ChatGPT what the heck is happening so it understands where I'm going with this. But for this purpose, we have a pretty easy one. So now we're gonna hit enter a little bit, or shift enter. If you hit enter, it's gonna start running. So shift enter. And then we're gonna say, I'm going to show you some of the outlines from my competitors. Please note if there is anything they include that I do not. And then this is where we're just gonna like feed it our competitors' outlines. Now, I like to just put them into Google Docs because I have I think I just have a slippery enter key finger or something because I'm always hitting the enter key by accident when I don't mean to. So I just want to come in here and quickly grab the actual focus table of contents of the piece. So I don't care about the keep learning or additional stuff. I don't care about
first of all, this is not great to have other headers above your title, but whatever, they're Moz, they can do what they want. So I'm just gonna come in here and grab the, with the free Chrome extension for hrefs, and anyone can use this even if you don't have hrefs. Totally free to use, highly recommend. But we can come down here and copy all of these. And so because we have the H1 in it, typically that would break it up. Now, this one's kind of weird because they have some weird H1s that they definitely shouldn't have. It's not good for SEO to have more than one H1 on a page, but I think we'll be able to get away with it. If it doesn't like it, what I would do is do like post 1, post 2. No, I think I want to play it safe. Post 1 or post 2. So if your competitors have something like, I don't know, in the travel world, we often compete with TripAdvisor or Booking.com. They don't actually like have an outline. So ignore them. They're not going to be helpful for you. We need like actually blog posts to help us with this. Like, as you can see, I'm avoiding all of the random information. So like the interested in further improving, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't care about that. I don't want any of this other information. I just want the actual part of the outline that is going to be, I think we're on post 3. Yep. It is going to be relevant for our outline. Otherwise, it's going to suggest that I add like Katie as one of my headers. Katie's clearly an author for that site, so that's not beneficial to us at all. Oops, I don't know what I just did there. Oh, I hit the menu bar rather than the extension. Okay, so we're just going to keep grabbing, and I'll just grab a couple of these. I'm not going to get all of them, but typically I would get all of them. So let's just do 4. And we'll copy all of these and then come back to ChatGPT and paste them in. So now you can see we have like our instructions above and our outline, and then we have all of our competitors' outlines. And so the cool thing is when I run this, it's going to tell me anything that I missed. So maybe I didn't like complex image types, didn't include that. I didn't talk about testing. I didn't talk about any of these. So we're going to let it run and tell us all the things that we might want to add. And then here you go. Here's a revised outline for your blog post. So here it gives us an idea of like what we had before and then how to fit this new stuff in. So it basically just put them all above the conclusion, which I think is pretty fair. It also realized that when I said examples, I didn't specifically say good or bad, which in my head when I was writing it, I was like, yep, I'm going to show a few examples and I'll show some good ones and some bad ones. Well, I didn't tell ChatGPT that, so it's included it as like a sub note of things to put in this section. So now I have an outline with some like actionable notes as well of like what's gonna actually be included in there, which is great because ChatGPT has basically given me Cliff's notes of what I need to tell it later when we're gonna write this post. But I think this is a really great way to just make sure that you've included everything. And so for example, a great use case for this and kind of the reason I would do this, because I do tend to write these really detailed outlines. Okay, Jasper, get out of here. We're not focusing on you right now. But when I do like my really detailed outlines, the problem is secondary keywords, LSI words, things like that. Especially for like if you have a main keyword and then you have like 6 secondary keywords, I don't want to go through 7 like pages of Google, like the first page for each of them, to check every single outline, especially because there's usually so much that's so similar. So what I'll often do to shortcut it, grab all of them, pull them into here, and then get ChatGPT to read 70 outlines essentially, 70 outlines, and then double check that I've covered all the main points. And anything that's missing, I can decide if it should actually be included in mine or if it's some random fluffy nonsense that the competitor used for their own purposes. So that's the best way to use ChatGPT for outlines. Now, another way, and one of the reasons as well that I did put this in the Google Drive or Google Doc to start with, is to actually do this kind of in reverse, I guess. Actually, I need the first part of our prompt. So it starts the same way, where we tell it like who we are, what it's doing, what the purpose of our post is, who it's for, all that good stuff. And then instead of jumping to here's my outline, you wouldn't have written one yet. So instead we're going to say, here are the outlines of my competitor. I'm just going to copy these and then I'll start writing the prompt. So here are the outlines of my competitors based on them and what I told you above. Please create an outline for my blog post that includes all of the major points they cover that will be most helpful to my user. And that I just include that extra bit of like most people would just say that includes like everything they cover. I want major points because if you say everything they cover, especially if you're in 3.5, sometimes it's a bit too literal and it'll basically say, okay, Nina said to include everything they cover. So examples, good examples, bad examples, secondary use examples, like whatever, it'll treat all of those as completely separate things. And then you have this really long, weird, redundant, awkward outline, and we don't want that. What we want is the most useful outline possible. And I also want it to be relevant to my users. So my users are bloggers. That means that like they don't need some of the other stuff. Like a lot of those complex file types that it was referring to when it looked at like the competitors before, it's because alt text is for like all sorts of stuff. So it's not just for blogs. And that means that some weird stuff is out there that we don't necessarily need as bloggers. So that also filters out things that are not relevant to my specific users. And I think that's very important. So do take the time to do that. And now we're gonna run it and give it a second. And then it's gonna come up with what our blog post should be in its opinion. It also does like to give an H2 to the intro. Just take that out. You don't start your post with an H2, it's weird. You already have an H1. Your intro does not need a header. And so here you can see this is significantly different than what we had before. It's not done yet, so I'll wait to fully judge it till it's done. There we go, okay. So it's pretty different. We have the intro, that's the same. What is alt text? That's the same. And then the dual purpose of alt text is not the same at all. I went more with like, why does it matter? And I think like, personally, I think that's a little bit more casual. I think it makes more sense, but same idea of like, why do we care about it? And then why every blogger should prioritize alt text. I would say that's a part of the one above it. I also don't know that I would have done H3, H4s here. You can also tell it, our outline should only have H2s. Please amend. And it'll adjust it and get rid of any of the H3s, H4s then. Do I recommend not using H3s and H4s? No, I think H3s and H4s are good. I don't really use 5 or 6. I think those are more like decorative, I guess. But here you go. Now you've got just H2. So if that matters to you, you can tell it that. And that would be something to kind of add to the prompt up here that is like the how it should create this. So if you have rules for your outlines, like, yeah, that your intros don't have an H2, I don't care enough to tell it that, so I just delete that one line. If you have rules about like how the headers, like I don't know, if they're always going to be all caps, if they should all be questions. If you do have hierarchical rules of like you can't jump from an H to an H4, it naturally won't do that. So if you want it to do that, then you definitely have to tell it to do that. If you require an FAQ section, if you require that FAQ section be in H3s, that sort of stuff, any of those particulars, you would then tell it up here. But going back to this, we've got like a pretty good, some similarity. So crafting the perfect alt text, key considerations. We did have like how to write it, so I think that's fairly similar. Alt text and actions, that's examples, and then it has more H3s to fit in what my competitors had. implementing it on your blog. So that wasn't a specific one I had, and I think that is a really good idea. Then it has those extra resources, testing it, page optimization tools for alt text. Yeah, that's fair. Okay. And then a conclusion. So like you can see pretty similar as far as an outline goes. And that's largely because it had the exact same sources. I definitely think the one that I created was more in my tone. It loves a colon. I don't know why. It is obsessed. Like ChatGPT loves shoving colons everywhere. I don't know why. I don't use colons nearly as much as it wants to. So if, like me, you're not a huge fan of them, I do also think it is worth it, like for your main outline, to put it into your words, into your terms. And one of the reasons I do that is that way I can put in secondary keywords and be in control of the phrasing. So here, the dual purpose of alt text, that's definitely not going to be a popular secondary keyword if it's even a keyword. And for a number of these ones, they're just a little bit awkward. Like context is king. I get what it's trying to do there, but it just feels a bit hokey, I guess. So yeah, you just have to kind of decide which of these works better for you. And it might just depend on the use case. Like it might depend on what you're doing. If you're doing like a listicle of 100 places, this is such a good way to amalgamate all of the places your competitors have. Like let's say your competitors have up to 50, like the highest competitor has 50, and you're like, nah, I'm shooting for the stars. I'm gonna do 100. Well, a lot of times, just because they have 50, it doesn't mean everyone else that has 10 or even like 20 has covered, like that the 50 person covered everything those people did. So maybe just from looking at all your competitors, you could get to 70, and then you just need to find an extra 30. So this can be a great way to make sure you've mentioned all of the locations or all of the restaurants or all of the steps or whatever that your competitors have. Now, on the other side of it as well, it could be a good way to it's hard to like explain this, I guess, but like to kind of group it rather than like necessarily reduce it. But for step-by-step instructions, if your competitor has 40 steps to do something, I never want to do more than 3 steps to do anything. Like I don't want to. So if you can turn like, I don't know, how to build a deck from 400 steps to 10 steps, and you can get ChatGPT to kind of group all the steps into like subcategories almost, or category is the wrong term because you're going to think I mean hierarchy, but I mean like H2s almost. So like, okay, sure, you have to like, I don't know, if sometimes people do think that it's better to like talk about every single position for every nail, and it's like, whoa, chill, just calm down for a minute. So you could then just say nail down the boards and then you've reduced like probably 40 of those steps. You could have sub steps that talk about it for sure and be like, okay, I don't know, step 2A or whatever, and then go into some of those details. But if you can like then reduce the overall number of steps, that's great. So you could say, okay, here ChatGPT, here's the outlines of my competitors. Create an outline for us, but we only want it to be a 10-step process. So group the steps, like as much as you can, amalgamate the steps. So we only have 10 steps, and then you can do sub steps if you want. And then it will group those for you, which is so helpful, because then like you don't have to read about how to build a deck in 400 ways, which like, can you tell I was helping my roommate set up a deck blog that I was not passionate about. So this is kind of how I do my outlining with ChatGPT. Then once I have an outline that I feel good about, what I want to do then is ask more questions. So great. Are there any follow-up questions my user might have about alt text that isn't included in the outline already? Because just because your competitors have talked about stuff doesn't mean it's covered everything. So there's more stuff here. How long should alt text be? That's a great question that none of them had in an outline. And yes, they might have it in their posts. I just picked a random idea I could think of for a post. So like, I'm probably not going to actually write this one. but so like I haven't actually gone in detail into them. So maybe they do talk about this, but it definitely wasn't a header. So that could be really important. Then the SEO implications. Now for a site all about SEO, that's a big freaking deal that I should definitely mention. We have it for different image types. I love the question about GIFs. Honestly, I wouldn't have even thought of that because like I don't think I've ever put a GIF into a post in my life. In emails, yes. In a post, no. So really important. How does alt text relate to image titles or captions? I get that question in my Facebook group all the time. So you can see a lot of these are like really good questions that just weren't included elsewhere. And so these can either become FAQ questions, like they are formatted as questions, so I can grab a couple of these, shove them in an FAQ, or they can become other headers, they might become sections of the post, they could just become like a subsection of an H3 or an H4 somewhere, it could just be something I mention in passing, but it gives me a lot more information to help my users with. So this is going to be extra information I can now add to the post. So you can ask for more questions if you need more. You can even feed it an example of some questions. So we all know, I'm hoping we all know, when you Google any keyword, you're typically going to get a people also ask section and the related searches down here. So you can just copy these, like straight up highlight and copy. Same for up here, highlight and copy. And then feed these to ChatGPT and say, here are some questions my users have about this as well. What are some other ones? If you're finding it's going like off in a weird tangent, that can be a really good way to kind of focus it in on the topic and questions that are related to this to this topic for your user. So yeah, how do you write alt text on a screenshot, on a logo? I think those are all great questions. It's actually making me want to write this post now because like, yeah, now I really want to write this post. It just gets me excited. I really like alt text. But because it started to do social media, and I know that like I don't care about social media, even though yes, other bloggers do, not really my purview. So doing more stuff like this where it's specific types of alt text for different types of media, that could be a great little like header section of alt text for different types of media. And then we list out a ton of them and then I go through each one. That could be really helpful. Would I have thought to do that right off the bat? No, this first outline was based on me looking at one of my competitors and brainstorming what I think the most common issues are. But the problem is I know this really, really well. So this is something I'm an expert in and I'm writing this for a beginner, which means a lot of times we forget the beginner questions related to the thing. So we might be like, oh yeah, of course it's this way, or of course we capitalize it, or of course we use punctuation. But a user like that's just starting out might have no idea about that. So ChatGPT is really great because it gives you that different perspective and it can really benefit you in creating extra bits to your outline that are not strictly SEO centered. When I do my outlines, they are very SEO focused for sure. And they're kind of like my interest level in this piece. So I would definitely tell the story of my grandma. I tell everyone that she's blind and like how it matters to her. I talk about accessibility as someone who uses a screen reader for my neurospiciness and everything. But I don't talk about necessarily a bunch of other versions of it. I don't talk about like, I don't know, the different types of media. That genuinely didn't occur to me. So clearly you can use ChatGPT to just give you that extra, like, again, like having a baby intern that just can offer you a different view. And I think it's so helpful. So I do recommend using it that way. But when you're starting the outline, I really do think it's better to start it yourself. And like just glancing at this, you can see how it's a much more casual, natural tone of voice than whatever this thing turned into with all of the, I don't know, crafting the perfect alt text, colon key considerations. It loves a colon. Whoever coded this is clearly obsessed with a colon. Or I don't know, read too many old books that had colons in the title. But yeah, this is how I use ChatGPT to do my outlines. It's not a super complicated process, which is really great. So it means you can spend more of that extra time on talking to ChatGPT for extra ideas. And I can even say, okay, like copy and paste 4 of these. These are the ones I like best, incorporate them into the outline, and it'll do that for me. Now, before you take it back to your, what's happening here? Well, before you take it back to your site, to get it like this from what we had on the other one, you can just tell it to rewrite the outline using Markdown language. And that's where it's going to make sure, like this one is, if I copy and paste this into WordPress or wherever, it's going to maintain this formatting. And we want the header formatting so we don't have to do it later. But we can see in the other one, I think because I just put the H2, it got a bit confused. So we're actually gonna come up here and say, great, now please format this in Markdown language. I always say Markdown language. I think you can just say Markdown, but I don't know. But so here you can see we're gonna get the hashtags and everything, and now you'll be able to copy and paste this into WordPress and it'll adjust it for you. There you go. And so that's gonna like allow you to actually get it formatted, so you're not gonna have to go through in WordPress and do the whole like control option 2, whatever, 3 for every single one to get it to be formatted properly. So that's how you create your outline, and I hope you've enjoyed this. Now take whatever kind of post you were working on before in the brainstorming and researching section. You're gonna do an outline now, and then we're gonna use this for our next section on actually writing the blog post.
Okay, it is time to write your blog post. I know you've been waiting for this. You might have even skipped to this section. If you did, please go back and watch the other ones ahead of this. I know that you want to dive into writing the blog post, but the other groundwork is so important, so please do that first and then come back. And even though I said we're about to write a blog post, we've got some work to do first. There's a reason that most people jump into ChatGPT, just say, write a blog post about whatever, and then hate the way it sounds, hate the formatting, it's full of wrong facts. We're gonna fix that, don't worry. So this is the massive base prompt that I use to write my articles with ChatGPT. And I learned the idea of feeding it a style guide from Authority Hacker, and it was a game changer. So this is my style guide kind of base prompt for it. I gave a few things in there that I think are important to have, but obviously please customize this for you. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about how to customize it. Now, if you're using GPT-4, this is going to go in your custom instructions area, but if you're using GPT 3.5, then the style guide information is going to be like, this is going to be your first prompt. But as you can see, there's things that just say like, our tone of voice is let ChatGPT define it. So we got to set this up first. So I'm going to show you how to do that before we even start writing the blog post. You only need to do this once and then just save it for yourself. So you can keep it in your notes app. You can, if you have GPT-4 and you only have one site, just leave it in your custom instructions area. Now for me, I do have multiple sites, and the tone and the focus is very different between the different sites. So what I want to do first is customize this per site and then just save it so that I can come back and change it out as I need to between my various sites. If you have GPT-4 as well, you can just use this as a prompt and not put it in your custom instructions. But if you have other stuff in your custom instructions from another site, it can confuse it. So I really recommend like clearing that out first if you're going to do that. So let's set this up the right way. And we're actually going to start at the bottom. So we're going to define our brand tone of voice first. So when you're first using ChatGPT, a lot of people find that it is kind of hokey or uses a lot of cliches or just sounds weird. It doesn't sound like you. We want it to sound like us. And so you can just have it define your style of writing each time, but that's kind of annoying to have to start every single time copying and pasting a section of your content and telling it, okay, this is how I write. So I'll actually show you how to do this. I'm just gonna take the intro of this piece. I wouldn't typically use an intro, just so you guys know, because they're kind of written a bit differently.
but I would say define this as Nina's, oh my God, there we go, style, and then feed that in. And so now it's going to read that and then tell me about my style down here. Takes a second, just give it a moment. It's got to kind of break down who you are as a person, basically. So some of this isn't correct. Like you can see future-oriented, emphasis on big goals, detail-oriented. Those are things that I wouldn't say are a part of my writing. So then for Nina's style, I'm gonna have to correct it and say, actually, the detail-oriented, future-oriented, and emphasis on big wins are only a part of this example and should not be a basis for Nina's style. Please remove. And then give it a second. It is a Sunday. It's probably mad at me. Or, nope, I did something wrong there. I don't know what just happened, but okay, we're gonna have to try that again. Please remove detail-oriented, future-oriented, and emphasis on big wins. Oh, and setting ambitious goals, as those are just parts of this piece and are not a part of Nina's overall style. Copy it in case it gets mad at me again. Yeah, it's getting mad at me. We're just gonna refresh it. Give it a second to figure itself out. When in doubt, whenever it like breaks like that, just refresh it. Sometimes it means you've had it open too long. Sometimes it means it's tired. It's okay, it happens. So here we go. Now we're getting more information on my personal style. And this is the problem, is like every time you start, you have to just figure this out with it. And it can sometimes change its view of what your style is. Now you can definitely just copy and paste this and share it with it every time, but it's kind of frustrating and sometimes it gets it wrong. I find it does a better job when it can see what you actually said up there. So I used to start all my blog posts this way, and it's still like, I do think it is a good way to do this. It's just not a great way to do this. I do this more for my email newsletters, which you'll find in another lesson, but I find for a blog post where every piece of information we give it, we need to be really careful that it's the right one. That way we're not like moving it too far away from the prompt. And then suddenly by the time I actually start writing this post, it's forgotten what Nina's style is. That's not helpful. So instead, the way that we can define our tone of voice is by putting it in our style guide that we're going to feed it. But we need it to know our tone of voice first. So you're just going to take a piece of content. I would typically recommend pulling from like an actual section of a post. So this one's kind of hard, but I would say like this section is probably the most Nina-esque while still being similar to something I'd want another piece of content to be. Yes, this is not the greatest example of like an SEO blog post. This was an email newsletter that I turned into a post because there was a lot of popular demand for people to be able to read this in perpetuity, I guess. So I'm just gonna copy this section of text that feels the most like what I'd want it to do. Now for your own site, go and find a piece of content, like be a bit more discerning than I have been here. I literally just picked the newest article on this site. Go and find a piece of content that you are most proud of, that you feel is most your style, or that is ranking the best on Google and thus is clearly like what Google also likes. Take that and go to ChatGPT and say, please define the tone of voice of this piece. And then just drop it in. So here we're getting exactly what my tone is in ChatGPT's opinion. And you'll notice if you give it different pieces of content, it will vary what it thinks your tone of voice is, which is why I say like pick the best version of what you'd like it to copy. You're probably gonna have to change it out a bit. So for me, the self-deprecating humor, that's 100% my tone and my style. However, I don't necessarily want ChatGPT doing that because it means it might make up stuff, and that's not going to be super helpful. So I might actually remove that from what I'm going to let ChatGPT tell me is the focus of like the way that I write. So now I'm going to come over here, and so you can see you need to fill in your own brand, just that way like it knows who you are specifically. So it should actually be that. And actually, because I have to give that to you guys, one sec, we're going to do another one so I can edit it. So we'll have she knows SEO, tone of voice is, and then we're just going to list it. Casual and informal, appreciative. Actually, appreciatives of Alex, my VA, who is wonderful, but that's not something we do in every single post. Conversational and lighthearted. And then we're going to define what those terms mean. So that's where you're just going to copy what it's given you, and we're going to pull these so that it can reference them. So you can even write these yourself if you want. I just find it can be helpful to see like what ChatGPT determines this is, rather than me having to be like, okay, it's engaging, but its version of engaging is different than my version of engaging. So that's why I like to let it tell me what it thinks this is so that I can then have it replicate it as best I can. So typically I would say have 5 things here, but for the example purpose, I think 3 is fine. And you can see it likes to give you 5. So again, try to pull pieces of text to feed to it that are the best representation of the type of content you want. If you're not a very strong writer and you're like, actually, I hate everything on my site, go to a competitor, ask about them. It's the same idea as like in Jasper and ChatGPT, you can tell it to write in the tone of, and then define someone who's like really famous. So for example, like Neil Patel in the SEO industry, it knows who Neil Patel is. It doesn't know who I am, but it knows who he is. So if I think my style is similar to his, or if I want to emulate his style, then I would tell it to write in his tone of voice. Now, do I want to do that every single time? No. Or maybe there's things about his voice that aren't quite right for me. So I could even combine my version and then also feed in his another time and ask it to define his tone of voice and then merge the 2 tones. So maybe mine is casual and informal, conversational and lighthearted. Maybe his is more about like case studies or very factual or something, because like it can be conversational and factual. That's doable. I wouldn't have it be formal and informal. That'd be weird. So don't like contradict yourself here. And if you're unsure if you've meshed it well, then feed the tone into ChatGPT and just say write a paragraph about, and then give it a topic in this tone of voice, and then give it this information here. Just copy and paste this into the prompt, and then you can see, is it getting this right? And if it's not, then you need to adjust it. But getting tone of voice right takes a minute, and like once you do this once and it works, you're set. But getting it right does matter, so take that time to get it right. Then for the rest of this piece, you're going to want to make sure you're adjusting the style guide to your site. So you can either go through this manually and adjust it, or you can feed it to ChatGPT and then tell it to adjust it. So here's my style guide, or here's like a style guide template. Please adjust it for my site, which we're going to do now. So we're going to leave tone of voice alone because it's fine. So we just need this here. So, hey, ChatGPT, please adjust this style guide for my website based on the prompts I give you. Please ask me questions when you need more clarity to ensure we have the best style guide for my brand. My blog name / brand is She Knows SEO. And so here is the template we're going to use. There we go. So the first thing it's probably going to do is adjust it to fill in She Knows SEO in all of them. I don't know what it's doing there. Here we go. Now it's got to the style guide. So it seems to want to adjust the format. That's fine. To be honest, doesn't really matter. Oh, it's because I put the prompt in the top. That's on me. I should have just taken the style guide. We're actually going to stop generating and fix that. One sec. Because that is definitely a mistake. Here we go. Save and submit. There we go. Okay, so now it's probably gonna first adjust it to fill in all the mentions of brand as She Knows SEO. So here you can see it's gonna go through. It just wants to bold things. I don't really care. Format doesn't super matter for a style guide. I just have a pretty informal one. But here you can see it's going through to make sure that it's filled in all the information. Most of it was pretty much not adjusted because it didn't need to be. It's just right now finding the She Knows SEO. Now, when you go through it, you can say, okay, do you use semicolons or colons? Do you like contractions? Do you, I don't know, prefer, maybe you'd never use H4s, then remove that. And so you can just talk to it and say like, great, now, and then start adjusting. So like, great, but we don't use H4s. And so the thing is, it's gonna have to rewrite it every single time. So I wouldn't typically give it one prompt. It's just that was the first thing I could think of to change. I would actually like in there, talk to it there to adjust it and be like, okay, here's all the things I would adjust. Here you have like avoid using H4. So basically you just want to have a conversation with it then. Now, another way you can do this once it finishes is you can say, great, ask me 7 questions about the style guide to ensure it's the right one for my business. Make sure we get clear answers to create a final version of the style guide for my site. So this is a cool prompt that I learned from a free authority hacker video, like back when ChatGPT was like first hitting the scene. And so here you can see it's going to ask you questions that you can then answer. So maybe it wants more information. What else can we do that's going to help it a bit more? So of course it wants tone of voice. It literally added for itself, please provide a brief description of tone of voice. But we also have like, what's your stance on linking to external sources? How do you prefer to end your articles, with a strong CTA or a question? I love this one. I think that's such a great one for it to ask. The one thing is I wouldn't put that in the style guide because we're going to build our blog post piece by piece. And the risk is that it's going to end every single paragraph we build or like blog section we build with a CTA, which is not helpful. And target audience is something we're going to build in a second. But then we also have content types. So like, what are we going to focus on building? I think that's a really helpful one. Other visual elements we might have, if there's specific cliches not to use, I think that's really helpful because for so many people, the issue that I hear from them with ChatGPT or Jasper or Koala or whatever is that it uses a lot of cliches or like hokey language, and everyone has different versions of like what is too much for them. Like I don't really like, I don't know, must see used more than like once or twice in a travel post, but some people will use it every frickin' sentence. And if that's your thing, that's fine. Now for a pet site, I have never referred to my dog as my furry friend in my entire life. I think that is such a weird term, and like, or like fur buddy, fur pal. I don't know. I just don't like refer to his fur. It's weird. So I'm going to tell it that those are the ones not to use. And the more you can customize this to your site and to make sure it understands you, the better. So once I answer these, it's then going to rewrite this for me, and then we'll have a style guide ready to go. Now, I don't actually want any of that stuff, so we're just going to come here and grab these sections and shove them in here. There we go. And so up here, I just need to add She Knows SEO. Now, the last thing you'll see is that we don't have a customer avatar here, and we need that. We need them to know who our ideal audience is. So what we want to do for that is build your ideal customer avatar. I don't have like a specific prompt that I use for that because, to be honest, like I've always just been pretty good about sitting down and writing out who the person is. But you can build it with ChatGPT. So, hey, ChatGPT, please act as an expert marketer. we need to build a custom audience avatar for a brand. The brand is, and then you would just name your brand. She knows SEO. Please ask me as many questions as you need to define this custom avatar. And so this is something I do if especially if I'm not very familiar with the type of thing of what is this thing that I'm asking it to do. So if you have never built an audience avatar before, essentially it's just creating a person that you're writing for. So for example, for one of my sites, it's McKenna has, I don't know, I'm gonna make up one, I guess. McKenna has a job in advertising that she really hates. She wants to start her own side hustle, but doesn't really know how to make it actually profitable. So she's been doing the blogging thing because she's kind of seen it around. She likes to travel on her time off, but she doesn't know how to combine that stuff. All those things. So what's her age, gender, you can see here, they've kind of given you all this information. So fill this out. Just be and you could just say, the mission of She Knows SEO is to help women learn SEO for their blogs to make passive income. We offer SEO services and travel blog SEO courses. And then just go through. So 18 to 35, I'm just making stuff up. Female, suburbs, have a family or want to have one, went to uni, work in advertising. And so you can see it's gonna just, based on the little bit I gave there, create a custom audience avatar. So here we go, Sarah, the SEO seeker. And so you're gonna get a bit of your brand overview for mission and offerings. You don't really need that for the actual audience avatar. I would kind of remove that for what you're gonna feed to ChatGPT. And then you can see what you don't fill out, it's gonna try and help you with. It's better if you can fill it out, or if you see what it offers and then you can comment and be actually, they wouldn't use LinkedIn. That sort of a thing. I love that it gives you pain points. It's something that's super helpful. This is actually the first time I did this in depth for She Knows SEO, where I went super deep into this stuff, was with a business coach that I hired, and just filling out his onboarding survey. I had to do this for every single offering I had, and it would have taken me a million years. So I fed it all those questions and then had it ask me the questions, and then together we figured out all the stuff for each of my people. So it's pretty simple to do this. Now, each time you do it, it's going to ask you different kind of methods of creating the customer avatar. So it's not always going to be exactly this. It's not always going to be this exact format. That's why when I say I don't have a strict prompt for it, basically the prompt is just help me do this. And then we can talk to each other and figure out how we're going to create this person. So I think this is a really interesting and fun way to create your customer avatar. And then what we do is I'm gonna just take audience avatar and copy it over there. And then I'm just gonna skip brand overview and take all the rest. Now, am I reading them right now? No, I'm not, to be honest with you, because we need to actually write this blog post. So I just wanna get rid of the numbers. It wouldn't really matter to ChatGPT, but it matters to my little brain. So I wanna get rid of those. So now that we have this sorted, I'm actually going to leave you to do this first. That way you don't have to pause the video. And then I'm going to come back and we're going to actually write that blog post. Don't worry, that video will be right beneath this, but I wanted to break it up because first of all, it'll otherwise be a crazy long video, but also that way you can take a minute and get this sorted without having to pause the video and then maybe it refreshes or whatever. So your homework before you even watch the next video is to set this up, okay? And then I want you to have this ready to go and have your outline ready from the last lesson. And then we're going to start writing your blog post. Now that we have our style guide that we can reuse time and time again, so don't worry,
You're not going to have to remake this every single time. We are going to take the full prompt here and run it through ChatGPT. Now, I'm going to just feed this information in, but like I said, you can go to custom instructions in GPT-4 and just put it here. So this is where you're going to put your style guide. So the like what it needs to know about you section. This is all information it needs to know about us. Now for the how you want it to respond, this is technically part of what we had here in terms of like the clarity, structure, that sort of thing. So you can like break this up. I just put it all into this section unless it's too long. So for example, if I took the whole thing and put it in here, you can see way too long. Now, admittedly, I do have some extra stuff. So if this is too long, you're gonna like break up the little bits and pieces. The main reason this is too long is going to be like my audience avatar here is really long. So you can actually ask ChatGPT to summarize your audience avatar if you want, but equally you can just come and put it in each time if you want to. Up to you. We're just going to put it in manually this time. So I'm going to take the whole prompt here, and this is basically a prompt that says what it's supposed to do. So act as an expert blog copywriter, and then it defines what that means. Then I give it the style guide, I give it our tone of voice, and our custom audience avatar. So I'm gonna pop all that in. Now, I just like to kind of finish this before I move on to the next piece and start adding more instructions. So I just say, once you have read the above, say read. Because like I said, I think in one of the other videos somewhere in this course, I have slippery fingers and I tend to hit enter by accident and then have to like go back a bunch of times to adjust it. It's better for me to just give it the one instruction and then move on to the next thing. So now that it knows what it's supposed to do generally and has all this context, we need to give it the specific information for writing our piece. Now, I hate AI generated intros. I think that they are most of the time absolutely terrible. Your intro is a spot for you to really connect with your user. So I do recommend writing your intros yourself, to be honest. I find them very easy. I just think it's easier for me to write it, especially when you're adding in EEAT elements. But if you do want to write it with ChatGPT, I'm going to take you through writing the main sections of a blog post. We're not going to write the full thing because we'd have to go through like each paragraph, but most paragraphs are basically the same. So we're going to do an intro, we'll do a main body section, and then we'll do an FAQ and a conclusion. So let's go into this general outline I had before. So you can see this doesn't really tell ChatGPT much. It says alt text, it doesn't talk about it being for bloggers, it doesn't really give a lot of context. So before I'm actually going to feed this to ChatGPT, I want to create briefs for each section. You can do this with ChatGPT where you can ask it to like fill in some information, give some context. Now, I don't do that because I think you should be an expert on this stuff and it can get things wrong. So this is where I would take the research that we did earlier and start slotting in research wherever it fits into this outline. For me, for this topic, I do know a lot about it, so we're just gonna go kind of off the top of my head, but we're also just gonna give a little bit of information. The more you can give, the better. So like, if you wrote an academic essay on this just to like basically prompt ChatGPT for each section, I would honestly still say that's fine. Like, give it too much information. That's better than not giving it anything. Now, for an intro, I use what's called the SPEAR framework for intros, which is developed by Jamie IF. So if you go to his site, you can either just know what that is and then write it yourself. You can know what it is and feed a bit of information to ChatGPT, or you can even take it, come to ChatGPT. We're just gonna have to make a new chat for this. And then I'm going to enable our web pilot and have it read this. Please read and summarize with actionable steps for writing an intro to a blog post with this method. Blog post, there we go. With I meant to say method. Don't know where that came from in my brain, but whatever. So it's going to run WebPilot now, summarize the tips that Jamie gives for writing this introduction. And then we can give this as the how of our prompt for ChatGPT. So like this is the thing, if I had just given it search/user intent, it doesn't necessarily know what that means. Same for pain points, same for expertise, for the audience, and for rapport. I think for audience it'd have a pretty good idea, but it might be off. So we want to make sure we do as much as we can to give it context. So what I like a lot actually is I'm liking these actionable steps here versus just the stuff above, because I want it to be kind of short and sweet. Remember, we are always kind of fighting against the limitations of ChatGPT's memory. So now that we have our giant amount of information there, we're going to give a little bit more context. So great. So we've already said to act as an expert blog writer. I always start with that, so I have to like stop myself from saying it again. So it's like, please act as an expert blog writer. We are going to write a blog post on the topic of, what was it? How to write alt text. How to write alt text for bloggers. So I'm giving a lot less information for our audience because we gave so much ahead of time. So now it knows basically what it's doing and basically who it's for. So I'm going to now teach it how to write a good intro. Here's how to write a good introduction for a blog post. And that's where I'm going to paste that information it gave me about Jamie IF's system. So now I'm going to say, please write a 50 to 100 word introduction for this blog post. However, there's something I haven't said yet, which is the SEO element of it. I have not said what the keyword is or where to use it. So I'm going to add another section of like what needs to be in it is the keyword should be used in the first sentence. This post's keyword is how to write alt text. So I've given it more information here. Now, do I have personal experience with alt text? Yes. So where it says like establish your expertise with relevant experiences or data, I haven't given it my experience yet. So I'm just gonna say experience and then colon. I just find it's like, I don't know, it figures itself out. Your prompt does not need to look good, to be fair. It needs to make sense, but it does not need to be, I don't know, the most consistent formatting wise. So my experience, I run multiple niche sites that are image heavy, especially my travel blog. My grandma is blind and I have ADD, so I use a screen reader. Images without alt text take away from our enjoyment. So now you have a bit of my experience there. I didn't go super in depth, but just giving that experience is going to make this a better introduction. I will say ChatGPT is really bad about sticking to word count. It is not good at that. I'm basically just doing this for my own sake. Maybe one day it'll be better about counting words, but I also want to like clearly show it should be smaller. So it at least knows 100 versus 1,000. And that should help us a little bit. You could also say end on a call to action to keep reading. You could say whatever is standard for your introductions. So I'm going to run this prompt and we're going to get our introduction for our piece. Okay, not great to be honest with you. So hey there, Sarah and fellow SEO seekers. I hate that's how so many like AIs start to write intros, is they speak to one specific person. So I would just delete that sentence, to be honest with you. Ever wonder like why is it past tense? But that's something that wasn't necessarily in my, I don't think I put that in the base thing that I put there. So that's a good note for me. I didn't tell it right in present tense. Something to say. So ever wondered how to write alt text for your blog, images, random emoji? Well, you're in the right spot. As someone who runs several niche sites, particularly a travel blog bursting with vibrant photos, I've seen firsthand the importance of alt text, not just for SEO, but for inclusivity. My grandma, who's blind, and I, with my ADHD, or ADD, rely on screen readers, and trust me, images without alt text, they're like a story half told. Dive in and we'll unravel the art of crafting the perfect alt text for your blog. Let's make the web a better place for everyone. So like the content is there. I think the structure is not great. It has used a random amount of commas in this sentence that is slightly overwhelming. It's also kind of gone into passive voice. So just because you prompt it well does not mean you're done. We're still going to need to customize. And 100% I find intros the worst part to customize. So like if you're going to use it for intros, be prepared to put in some work with it. So please use active voice. The emoji makes no sense, so remove it. Do not refer, or do not start. I was gonna say remove first sentence, it's just bad. Remove first sentence. Break up the paragraph. Smaller paragraphs. Often for intros and conclusions, it tries to write like one giant chunk of text. I think it was like kind of trained to do more like academic intros and conclusions that way. So it is really annoying.
Welcome to the ChatGPT blogging blueprint, and welcome to ChatGPT. If you've never heard of ChatGPT or used it, congratulations.